Chapter 551. After not being here for 4 years, Xiao Chen revealed a faint smile when he revisited this place. I'll go and see Big Brother Mo Fan first. If there is a chance, I'll get him to help me improve the Lunar Shadow Saber. The rank 6 Thunder Rock Demonic Core is no longer able to keep up with my current strength. Back when Xiao Chen forged the Lunar Shadow Saber, he was only an insignificant cultivator. Naturally, the rank 6 Thunder Rock was something that Xiao Chen did not dare to imagine. However, now that he was a half-step martial monarch, he could instantly kill a rank 6 demonic beast. This demonic core was no longer suitable for the Lunar Shadow Saber. Thus, when Xiao Chen saw a 1,000-year-old rank 9 lightning-attributed demonic core in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's hidden treasure pavilion, he immediately took one. After paying the city entrance tax, Xiao Chen followed the crowd into the city. The scene on both sides of the street brought many warm memories to Xiao Chen's mind. He found a restaurant in the city and sat down by the window on the second floor. Xiao Chen called the waiter over and handed him a gold ingot. He said, "Answer whatever I ask." The fist-sized gold ingot dazzled the waiter's eyes. He bit down hard on it, and after he was sure it was real, he quickly bowed and smiled. "Hee, young hero, just ask whatever you want to ask." However, there is actually nothing much to ask in Mo City. Xiao Chen muttered to himself for a while before asking, "Which clan is the strongest in Mo City?" The waiter laughed loudly. "Is there a need to ask? Naturally, it is our Zhang clan. Currently, more than half of the businesses in Mo City are in the hands of our Zhang clan." "Your Zhang clan?" Xiao Chen frowned heavily. Something did not seem right. The waiter said proudly, "Hee, that's right. Now, all the restaurants and inns in the city are the businesses of the Zhang clan. Although I am not a direct descendant of the Zhang clan, I am still surnamed Zhang. We can be considered of the same sect." Xiao Chen took a sip of wine. His expression was somewhat unsightly. If he remembered correctly, this restaurant belonged to the Xiao clan many years ago. What about the Xiao family in the past? The waiter revealed a cocky expression as he said, "The river flows east for 30 years and then west for 30 years. 2 years ago, the Xiao clan was like the sun in the sky in Mo City, or even the entire Cheesy County. However, now, they can only hide at the foot of Seven-Horn Mountain. It won't be long before we lose this Seven-Horn Mountain." Xiao Chen's heart sank. 4 years ago, before he left the Xiao clan, he used the 9th Heaven's Thunder formation to capture the upper echelons of the Zhang clan, the Tang clan, and the Lin clan, the number 1 clan in Cheesy County. With the strength of the Xiao clan, logically speaking, they should not have any opponents in the Cheesy County. What exactly happened? Could it be that the noble clans that I offended made a move? That can't be right. Feng Feishua promised me that she would not let those noble clans touch the Xiao clan. With the enormous strength of the Flying Snow Trade Association, the aristocratic families would definitely not act recklessly. That would be suicidal. Pa. Xiao Chen took out another 2 gold ingots and handed them over. "Let me ask you again. What exactly happened 2 years ago that caused the Xiao clan to decline so quickly?" When the waiter saw the 2 gold ingots, his face lit up with joy. However, his expression was somewhat awkward. He chuckled and said, "We are just insignificant people. Actually, young hero, you should be able to guess that we do not know any confidential information. Anyway, 2 years ago, the Xiao clan's clan head and a few elders were suddenly severely injured. After that, the Zhang clan and the Tang clan rose up and snatched away many of the territories that originally belonged to the Xiao clan." Xiao Chen waved his hand and dismissed the waiter. He was not too surprised to receive such an answer. A waiter of a restaurant was not even a cultivator. It was easy to imagine how much he would know. Xiao Chen had only asked casually and did not hold much hope. However, he did have a headache now. Originally, he wanted to ask the waiter about the situation of the Xiao clan. He did not expect to receive news that the Xiao clan had fallen into dire straits. "I should go and ask Big Brother Mo. With his strength, he should know something that the waiter did not." "Ha. Xiao Ling I did not expect you to come to my restaurant for a meal. Come, let's go to a private room. I, Zhang Ziyang, will treat you. Just as Xiao Chen was about to pay the bill and leave, a familiar voice came from the hall downstairs. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. This name, Zhang Ziyang, seemed familiar. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen finally found this person from the corner of his memory. Zhang Ziyang, the second son of the Zhang clan head. His elder brother, Zhang He, had once fought with Xiao Chen. Zhang He was still considered someone important, but this Zhang Ziyang was nothing. However, Xiao Chen's tone was very arrogant. As for Xiao Ling naturally, Xiao Chen would not forget her. She was the Xiao clan disciple who had pleaded for him when he participated in the trial with her. Xiao Chen also had a deep impression of the youth beside her. That was Yilan, a disciple of the Xiao clan with a different surname. He was deeply in love with Xiao Ling. Yilan had once met with a great calamity and was even willing to use his life to save Xiao Ling. It looked like the two of them had succeeded. Right now, the two of them seemed to have met with some trouble. Xiao Ling looked coldly at Zhang Ziyang and stood up. How unlucky. We can't even eat in peace. Yilan, let's go. Xiao Ling felt very depressed. She had eaten the signature dishes of this restaurant since she was young. This time, she could not resist sneaking out with Yilan for a meal. However, before they started eating, they ran into the person they did not want to see the most. You want to leave? Have you asked for my permission? Zhang Ziyang snorted coldly. His subordinates immediately stepped forward to cut off the two's path of retreat. Yilan's face sank. He placed his right hand on his weapon and shielded Xiao Ling behind him. He said in a cold voice, Zhang Ziyang, what are you trying to do? Don't forget what the city lord said. A strange smile appeared on Zhang Ziyang's face as he said, don't worry, since the city lord has already mediated the conflict between the two clans, I will not make things difficult for you. However, do you think you can leave without paying the bill? Dong! Xiao Ling tossed 2 ingots of gold onto the table and snorted, are you satisfied now? 50 taels of gold, there is no need for the change. Let's go. However, the 5 men blocking the entrance did not move at all. They did not have any intention of moving away. The 5 men were all peak martial grandmasters. None of them were weaker than Yilan. If the 5 of them attacked together, they would be able to subdue Yilan in an instant. Zhang Ziyang was expressionless as he crushed the 2 ingots of gold on the table. He said in a cold voice, did I say that this meal was priced in gold? The 2 of you, hand over 100 inferior grade spirit stones immediately. Otherwise, none of you can think of leaving. Xiao Ling's and Yilan's expressions changed greatly. Xiao Ling cursed out loud, what do you think you are selling? Even a rank 1 spirit beast feast would not fetch such a price. Zhang Ziyang looked at Xiao Ling's graceful figure and a frivolous look flashed in his eyes. He smiled and said, you better understand the situation. This is my Zhang clan's restaurant. It will sell for as much as I say. Even if you don't want to accept it, you will have to accept it. You little girl, I have been eyeing you for a long time already. How dare you send yourself to the tiger's den? I will count to 5. If you are unable to pay the spirit stones, I will make you pay with your body. Zhang Ziyang acted like he was in control of the situation. Currently, the Zhang clan was in the limelight. Their words were law in Mo City. Even the city lord had to give them some face. 5, 4, following Zhang Ziyang's countdown, the 5 men at the entrance laughed sinisterly. Their auras locked onto the 2 of them, preparing to attack at any moment. 1, attack! Zhang Ziyang shouted coldly. The 5 men immediately pounced over, scaring Xiao Ling until she turned pale. Pooh! However, just at this moment, 5 muffled miserable cries resounded. 5 peak martial grandmasters with overbearing auras stopped breathing without any warning and fell over. On the 2nd floor, the cultivators who were leaning on the railing to watch the excitement were all astonished. Their expressions were very confused. Among the crowd, Xiaochen held a wine flask. He revealed a faint smile as he unhurriedly poured wine into his mouth. Zhang Ziyang, who was in the hall, was startled. A manservant behind him quickly checked the 5 men's breathing. He raised his head and said with a trembling voice, "Second. Young master, it seems like they are all dead." Xiao Ling and Yilan were both at a loss. It was clearly a matter of life and death. How did it turn out like this? Still not leaving? What are you standing here for? Just at this moment, a voice rang out in the minds of the two of them. The two of them were astonished and quickly raised their heads to look around. "Stop looking, you won't be able to find me. Go back." The voice rang out in their minds again. Xiao Ling and Yilan exchanged glances. They knew that an expert had made a move to help them. Furthermore, that person did not want to show himself. They did not stay any longer and quickly turned to leave. Trying to leave? There is no way. Before we investigate this matter clearly, neither of you are allowed to leave. Ah. Zhang Ziyang was enraged. He leaped into the air and launched himself over. However, just as Zhang Ziyang's body soared into the air, there seemed to be a huge, formless hand pressing down on him with an irresistible force. Zhang Ziyang fell with a pa sound in an extremely comical position. It was as comical as one could imagine. Zhang Ziyang's face landed on the ground and he fell flat on his face. Ha ha ha. Young Master Zhang, your actions are not something an ordinary person can do. You must have practiced for a long time at home. Xiao Ling giggled and went out the door with Yilan. Bastard! Don't run for this old man. Zhang Ziyang's right hand smashed the ground violently. His body soared into the air and he was about to stand up again. Xiao Chen smiled gently and placed the wine flask aside with his right hand. Then, he sent out a palm strike with his left hand. A huge force was transmitted through the void without leaving a trace. Paw! Another heavy thud rang out. Zhang Ziyang fell face first onto the ground. This time, he fell even more miserably. Half of his face was red, and a trace of blood seeped out of his nose and mouth. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! This old man doesn't believe that I can't stand up. Zhang Ziyang cursed angrily. He circulated his essence and smashed the ground with his right hand. When Zhang Ziyang sent out his essence, a strong wind blew and dust drifted. Zhang Ziyang soared into the air, his movements swift and agile. After that, he fell with a paw sound. Paw! 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 Zhang Ziyang tried more than 10 times. His entire face bled from the fall. However, no matter how he tried, he could not stand up. The floor of the hall cracked from the impact. Chapter 552. At first, the people watching the commotion laughed loudly. They felt that this brat was comical. When they thought of his usual arrogant attitude, they felt very carefree in their hearts. However, when they saw Zhang Ziyang's miserable state, the smiles on their faces vanished. They all felt that this brat was suffering too much. Being taught a lesson to this extent was even worse than being killed. Zhang Ziyang did not care what the others thought of him. He still tried to stand up with much difficulty. This time, he carefully placed his hands on the ground. He placed his left foot on the ground and slowly stood up. His blood-covered face revealed an expression of hope. He slowly arched his back and stood up, one step at a time. The manservant at the side quickly smiled and said, "Young master, you succeeded." Zhang Ziyang laughed heartily, "Ha ha ha. Are you messing with me? Damn! If I find out who did this, I will make sure his entire clan dies. I wonder who has the final say in Mo City now, Pa." Before he could finish speaking, Zhang Ziyang's entire body was sent flying to the ground. This time, the force he used was so great and the sound was so loud that everyone in the restaurant could hear it clearly. Everyone felt their hearts skip a beat. Many of them could not bear to watch any longer. They closed their eyes, unable to bear to watch. This brat was too miserable. Entire clan killed? Xiao Chen smiled coldly to himself. After not returning for 4 years, this group of people had really forgotten the lesson from back then. Xiao Chen walked back to his table and put down the wine flask. Then, he tossed out an ingot of gold and jumped out of the window. Of the cultivators present, the highest cultivation was only a peak martial grandmaster. Xiao Chen was a half-step martial monarch. They could not even sense how he had attacked. This was the difference between heaven and earth. 4 hours later, the manservant sat beside Zhang Ziyang in the hall of the restaurant. He advised bitterly, "Second young master, please get up. Everyone in the restaurant has left." Zhang Ziyang buried his head on the ground. He was in so much pain that tears flowed down his face. He scolded angrily, "Scram! What do you know? Do you want to see this second young master make a fool of himself? Even if you beat me to death, I will not get up. My face hurts. Do you know that?" In a desolate street in Mo City, Xiao Chen followed the route in his memory and slowly made his way to Mo Fan's smithy. Mo Fan's smithy was the same as it was 4 years ago. It was still extremely simple and crude. A weather-beaten signboard was erected at the entrance, looking like it would fall down at any moment. The doors were ajar. Xiao Chen stood there for a long time, thinking of the various scenes of the past. As he looked at the lunar shadow saber in his hand, he felt many emotions. 4 years ago, he forged the lunar shadow saber here. He spoke to a man from 1,000 years ago and made a promise not to make her cry. At that time, he didn't know that man's identity, and he didn't know how talented that man was. Only after Xiao Chen thoroughly understood did he realize how heavy that promise was. This promise was equivalent to him receiving the sword of the Thunder King. She was Ao Jiao, a proud sword spirit. Even the Thunder King couldn't guarantee her death with his strength. Could he, Xiao Chen, do it? Xiao Chen's expression turned grave. He sighed softly. Even the Thunder King could not guarantee the mulberry sword's death. Can I do it? You don't have any confidence? Trashy master. Startled, Xiao Chen said joyfully, "Ao Jiao, are you awake?" Xiao Chen remembered Ao Jiao saying that if she woke up again, it would be after she had completely merged with the sword spirit. Inside the lunar shadow saber, Ao Jiao's lips curled up. She smiled softly. "When you were being intimate with her, I had already woken up. I even watched the battle for a long time." Speechless, Xiao Chen said, "Should I thank you for not making a sound and disturbing me?" Ao Jiao laughed loudly, "There is no need to thank me. I have always been very magnanimous. Don't just stand there, go in." Xiao Chen felt helpless. However, he could not do anything to Ao Jiao, so he could only push the door open and enter. "This small shop is already closed. We are not doing business today." The small shop was filled with dust. Mo Fan limped as he retreated. His back faced Xiao Chen as he tidied up some weapons on the shelves. Xiao Chen smiled softly, "Are you not doing business with me?" Mo Fan's hands paused for a moment. He turned around and saw a youth in white robes with a saber hanging at his waist. The youth had a smile on his face as he looked at him calmly. "Xiao Chen." After a long time, Mo Fan exclaimed in pleasant surprise. Compared to 4 years ago, Xiao Chen's appearance had undergone a huge change. This was especially so in terms of his temperament. It had undergone an earth-shattering change. With one glance, an ordinary person would not be able to connect him to the Shao clan's second young master from 4 years ago. When he entered Mo City, many people did not recognize him. This was the best proof. Mo Fan said ruefully, "It's really you. Your change is extraordinary. If not for this lunar shadow saber, I would not have been able to recognize you." Xiao Chen looked around the interior of the shop. There were weapons everywhere. He sighed, "It has been 4 years, but your shop has not changed much." Mo Fan smiled, "How could my shop have changed? Let's talk inside, let's drink and chat." "Wait a moment. Mo Fan asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" Xiao Chen did not say anything. He stretched out his hand, and a sword flew out from the pile of weapons. The sword was 1.3 meters long and 2 fingers wide. It was as thin as a wing, but when it danced in the air, it did not make any sound. Listening to the sword and communicating with it, Xiao Chen shouted, and the thin sword suddenly trembled non-stop, giving off a melodious sword hum. Wang! 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 In that instant, all the swords in the shop buzzed in unison. The boundless sword hum was linked together, and even the house seemed to tremble. "All right, we can go in now." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and stopped. All the sword hum stopped in that instant, and everything returned to normal. Mo Fan was flabbergasted. He did not know why Xiao Chen suddenly did this. Ao Jiao, who was in the lunar shadow saber, clenched her fist and said unhappily, "This fellow is really vengeful." Unexpectedly, he did not forget my words even after 4 years. Mo City, at the restaurant where Zhang Ziyang and Xiao Ling'er clashed, the Zhang clan's clan head, Zhang Yan, rushed over with the elites of his clan. There was a crack in the ground, as well as Zhang Ziyang, who was crawling on the ground, refusing to get up. There were also 5 men lying on the ground, unable to get up. Zhang Yan, who was at the door, had an incredibly sullen expression. He called the manservant over and said in a sullen voice, "Tell me everything that happened in detail." Unexpectedly, 5 martial grand masters died. A martial grand master was already the elite combat force of Mo City. Now that 5 of them died in one go, Zhang Yan could not help but be in a bad mood. The manservant nervously recounted everything that happened. When he saw Zhang Yan going over to pull Zhang Ziyang up, he said anxiously, "Master, don't go over and talk to him. Young master's emotions are not right." Zhang Yan glanced at him and did not care. He thought to himself, "I am his old man. What is wrong with calling him up? Scram! Idiot! Did you not hear what I said? This old man's face hurts. I don't want to get up. No matter who calls me now, this old man will not get up." When Zhang Ziyang heard footsteps, he immediately shouted loudly. Zhang Yan's expression changed as he sent out a kick. Zhang Ziyang's entire body was sent flying with a loud bang. When Zhang Ziyang saw that it was Zhang Yan, he quickly got up. However, as he was halfway up, he seemed to think of something terrifying, so he quickly lay back down. "Father, I really cannot get up now. Don't bother about me. Let me lie here for the night first. I will feel uncomfortable if I don't lie here," Zhang Ziyang said with a sullen expression. Zhang Yan scolded angrily, "Trash! Bring him back. Bring the corpses of these 5 people back for the Lord Envoy to examine." "There is no need. I am already here." At some point in time, a young black-clad cultivator descended from the roof of the hall. Many ancient patterns were embroidered on his black robes, making him look dignified and mysterious. When Zhang Yan saw this person, he quickly said respectfully, "Greetings, Lord Envoy." The black-clad man ignored Zhang Yan's attitude and started to examine the corpses of the 5 people. He flipped over one of the corpses and discovered a bloody hole in the forehead of that person. This was the cause of death. The black-clad man opened his hand and sucked. That person's head started swaying left and right as if something was stuck inside. Shio! A tiny fragment flew out of the bloody hole. With a cracking sound, the fragment flew out. The surging power spread out, and the corpse's head exploded with a bang, directly grinding into powder. The surrounding Zhang clan cultivators, including Zhang Yan, were all startled. Their complexions turned pale. Even a remnant energy could be so powerful. How strong was the person who did it? The masked man looked at the shard in his hand and said in shock, "This is a shard of a medial-grade spirit stone. The person who made this is really generous." Zhang Yan asked carefully, "Lord Envoy, how strong is this person?" The black-clad man said indifferently, "About medial-grade martial king. Don't bother about this. I'll deal with it. Call all the workers in the shop over." That person must have been here before. We will be able to make a judgment after questioning him. Medial grade martial king. Zhang Yan's chest tightened. The Shao clan's clan head was only an inferior grade martial king. If this person was a medial grade martial king, killing him would be easy. Fortunately, the Lord Envoy had spoken. Medial grade martial king would not be a problem. In the backyard of the smithy, Mo Fan drank a mouthful of wine. After he heard Xiao Chen's question, he sighed and said, "Back then, you wrote me a letter asking me to help you take care of the Shao clan. I have always remembered it. However, I cannot help you this time." Xiao Chen felt excited. Indeed, there was more to this. In the morning, he had heard from the waiter that the Shao clan's clan head and first elder were severely injured. Xiao Chen had already guessed that there was more to this. Hence, he was not in a rush to meet with Xiao Ling and first elder. He planned to hide his identity first. 4 years ago, Xiao Xiong was already a peak martial saint. Now that 4 years had passed, given Xiao Xiong's strength, he would definitely be a martial king. The person who could injure him was definitely a high-ranked martial king. If the Zhang clan spent some of their savings to hire an inferior grade martial king, it might be possible. However, if they wanted to hire a high-ranked martial king, the Zhang clan would not be able to afford it. If they could afford it, the Zhang clan would have conquered Mo City long ago. There would be no need to wait for the promise of 10 years. Mo Fan continued, 2 years ago, a sect called the Heavenly Saint Cult came to Chizi County. It is very powerful, and your father was injured by the people of their sect's emissary. The Zhang clan is also a puppet supported by the Heavenly Saint Cult. Xiao Chen took a sip of wine and frowned. Sacred Heavenly Church. Where did they come from? I have never heard of them. Chapter 553. Mo Fan said sullenly, I have investigated the Sacred Heavenly Church in detail. They have a great and mysterious background. I already have some guesses, but I am not sure yet. I'll just say what I am sure of. There are a total of 6 small cities in Chizi County. Each city has a puppet supported by the Sacred Heavenly Church. They have unknowingly controlled all the underground powers of the entire Chizi County. I spent some time visiting the other counties and discovered that there are branches of the Sacred Heavenly Church in several counties. They all use the same method to support puppets to control the underground powers of the counties. It seems like there are branches of the Sacred Heavenly Church throughout the entire Great Qin nation. However, they are active in the counties and not the prefectural cities. Hence, they did not attract much attention. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. However, he did not think too much about it. In his opinion, the Sacred Heavenly Church was just a small fry. In the end, a sect should focus on developing its own strength. With such a small fry, when it truly angered a strong sect, any martial monarch would be able to deal with it easily. Now that he had a rough idea, Xiao Chen said, tell me the location of the Sacred Heavenly Church's headquarters in Chizi County. I will personally make a trip there. It was easy to destroy a Zhang clan. However, the other party could support another Zhang clan at any time. Hence, he had to deal with the problem at its source. Let's not talk about this for now. I have something to give you. After obtaining an answer, Xiao Chen changed the topic. He took out the 1,000-year-old rank 9 lightning attributed demonic core and said, aside from this matter, I would like to ask you for a favor. Mo Fan received the demonic core and took a look. His expression changed greatly as he exclaimed, this is the demonic core of a 1,000-year-old rank 9 demonic beast. Where did you get it from? How strong are you now? Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, a 1,000-year-old demonic beast is already a martial sage. I will definitely not be able to kill it. This is a gift from a friend. I would like you to help me insert this rank 9 lightning attributed demonic core into the lunar shadow saber. Can you do that? Mo Fan smiled and said, leave it to me. With the prescription you gave me, although my leg is still a little lame, my meridians are finally open. I did not make no progress in the past 4 years. Without any hesitation, Mo Fan immediately agreed. He held the lunar shadow saber and the demonic core in his hands. He rejected Xiao Chen's offer of help and headed straight for the underground forging room. After Mo Fan left, Xiao Chen muttered to himself, "Sacred heavenly cult. I hope it won't be a big problem." No matter what, the Xiao clan was his root in this world. He, Xiao Chen, couldn't just watch the Xiao clan be in trouble without doing anything. That way, he wouldn't be able to leave with peace of mind. He would be worried and unable to calm down. It would probably take some time to reforge the lunar shadow saber. Xiao Chen did not want to waste any time. He took out 2 superior-grade spirit stones and sat cross-legged in the courtyard, entering a state of cultivation. 4 hours later, Xiao Chen's heart sank. He felt a strong aura probing him with his perception. He opened his eyes and immediately extended out his spiritual sense. He saw a strangely dressed black-clothed man standing on a roof a kilometer away from the smithy, looking in his direction with an unfriendly gaze. The black-clothed man withdrew his perception and said in a low voice, "White clothes, delicate facial features, no older than 22 years old. It seems like it is this person. However, he does not seem to be easy to deal with. Are you looking for me?" A sudden voice came from behind him. When the black-clothed man heard this, his expression changed drastically. He quickly turned his head and saw that Xiao Chen had appeared at some point in time, looking at him expressionlessly. Pretending to be mysterious. "Die!" The black-clothed man's reaction was very fast. The instant he turned around, he sent out a palm strike. There was a fiery red glow in his palm. A golden heavenly rock image spread its wings and cried out, making the fiery red glow even more resplendent and dazzling. Berserk Dragon. Xiao Chen remained expressionless. He clenched his right fist tightly and all his vital qi surged. An azure dragon had appeared and roared ferociously. A resonant dragon roar resounded. Heavenly rock spreads its wings, shaking the surroundings, winds blow and clouds churn. I have the berserk dragon roar, winds and clouds break. Bang! The azure dragon head crashed into the fiery red glow. The glow shattered and vanished. The black-clothed man vomited a large mouthful of blood. The golden heavenly rock behind him shattered. The black-clothed man flew back and smashed a huge hole in the roof below. After that, there was a loud boom and a shockwave exploded. The tall building collapsed and turned into rubble, burying the black-clothed man. This was the result of the absolute difference in strength. The black-clothed man was only a superior-grade martial king. How could he resist Xiao Chen, who was a half-step martial monarch? High in the sky, Xiao Chen looked coldly at the rubble on the ground. A murderous intent spread in his eyes. Roar! A piercing bird cry came from under the rubble. Countless stone fragments shot up from the ground and floated in the air. The black-clothed man soared into the air and the golden heavenly rock behind him reformed once more. Its might was even stronger now. Berserk Dragon, Claw. Xiao Chen's figure flickered. He was so fast that the black-clothed man could not react in time. The azure dragon claw on his left hand tore through the air. 5 bloody wounds appeared on the black-clothed man's body. The golden heavenly rock behind him cried out miserably. Its feathers flew off and it turned into beams of golden light. You are too much. Bang! 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 The black-clothed man roared ferociously. The golden heavenly rock reformed once more and charged at Xiao Chen. The fiery light in his hand looked solid, dazzling and piercing. Not enough. Berserk Dragon Break. Xiao Chen shook his head slightly. With a thought, the dragon head on his right hand and the dragon claw on his left connected head to tail, turning into a complete blue dragon. A resonant dragon roar soared into the sky. The lifelike blue dragon bared its fangs and claws as it roared ferociously. The black-clothed man's clothes were blasted into tatters. He vomited a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, unable to get up again. Xiao! Xiao Chen's figure flashed and arrived beside the black-clothed man. Then, like an eagle catching a chick, He picked the black-clothed man up and asked coldly, "Why are you following me?" The black-clothed man's pale face was devoid of blood. He laughed strangely and spat out a mouthful of blood at Xiao Chen. Bang! A purple flame spewed out from Xiao Chen's right eye. The blood immediately evaporated into a bloody mist, scalding the black-clothed man until he cried out in pain. "I will ask you one more time, one last time. Who are you? Why are you following me?" Xiao Chen asked coldly with a calm expression. The black-clothed man smiled fearlessly and said, "If you have the guts, then kill me. I am just an insignificant person from the sacred heavenly church. Even if you kill me, it will not change anything. You are Xiao Chen, right? Just wait for the Xiao clan to be destroyed." In the black-clothed man's opinion, with the Xiao clan holding him back, Xiao Chen absolutely would not dare to kill him. Boom! Xiao Chen picked up the black-clothed man's body and tossed him high into the air. The black-clothed man immediately felt an irrepressible fear in his heart. Just as he was about to say something, the black-clothed man grunted in pain and stopped breathing. A purple flame arrow shot out from Xiao Chen's eyes and pierced through the black-clothed man's forehead. In that instant, the black-clothed man felt regret in his heart. However, he no longer had the chance to regret. Looking at the black-clothed man's corpse on the ground, Xiao Chen said calmly, "I do not care about the insignificant sacred heavenly church. So, you can really die now." Holding the black-clothed man's corpse in his hand, Xiao Chen rushed back to Mo Fan's smithy before the crowd surrounded him. After 4 hours, Mo Fan walked out of the underground smithy with a fatigued expression. In his hand was a brand new lunar shadow saber in its scabbard. Seeing the black-clothed man's corpse on the ground, Mo Fan was stunned. He said, "This is the envoy of the sacred heavenly church in Mo City. You killed him?" Xiao Chen nodded and said, "He is just a minor character. There is no need to bother with him. Let me take a look at the saber." Caw! Holding the saber hilt with his right hand, Xiao Chen felt the surging energy in the saber. He gently pushed his right hand forward and the pitch-black saber immediately released a purple light. Bolts of flickering lightning shot out from the saber. Strands of electricity leaped around in the courtyard. Ka Xie! Xiao Chen pushed the saber forward ferociously and drew the entire saber. Instantly, a piercing purple electricity lit up the entire courtyard. Xiao Chen did not use any strength at all, it was the lunar shadow saber's own strength. Mo Fan smiled and said, "The lunar shadow saber is now a true superior grade heaven-ranked spirit weapon. It is overflowing with sharpness and electricity. Its might is 20% stronger than before." Xiao Chen revealed an excited smile on his face. He said, "I knew you were capable of this. Many thanks." Returning the saber to its scabbard, Xiao Chen took out a 1,000-year-old black profound ginseng from the universe ring and handed it over to Mo Fan, not allowing the other party to reject it. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "Don't reject it. You have taken care of the Xiao clan for so long and helped me forge the lunar shadow saber twice. Logically speaking, I owe you." A 1,000-year-old black profound ginseng was enough to increase Mo Fan's cultivation by 20 years. Honestly speaking, the temptation was very great. Ha ha. In that case, I will respectfully accept. What are your plans after this? Mo Fan asked. Xiao Chen grasped the lunar shadow saber tightly with his right hand and said calmly, "It is very simple. I will attack the root of the problem and kill them all. As long as they were a threat, he would have to eliminate them." Xiao Chen could not be bothered to consider other methods. The Five-Nation Youth Competition was only a few months away. All the genius cultivators were cultivating bitterly, waiting for that moment to arrive. Xiao Chen did not have much time to think. Mo Fan asked, "Do you not intend to make a trip to the Xiao clan? You have done so much. If your father knew about it, he might reconsider." Xiao Chen paused for a moment and revealed a bitter smile. He shook his head and said, "There is no need. Since he chased me away, he must have his own plans. I will just come back and take a look from afar. Let's go." Smiling faintly, Xiaochen waved his hand and said goodbye to Mo Fan. Heavenly Jade Mountain was the largest mountain range in Cheesy County. Even Mo City's Seven-Horn Mountain was not even half as big. However, compared to Seven-Horn Mountain, Heavenly Jade Mountain was not even half as valuable. This was because the mountain did not have a spirit vein, spirit herbs, or spirit beasts. It was just a desolate mountain. However, on this desolate mountain that no one paid any attention to, a huge castle had been built at some point in time. Although the castle was large, it was built in a very low-profile manner. It was hidden in the lush green forest. If one did not fly high into the sky, it would be hard to discover it. On the city walls, there were cultivators holding crossbows every few meters. They looked around vigilantly. It looked like the walls were made of iron, impenetrable. Chapter 554. This castle was the headquarters of the Sacred Heavenly Church in Cheesy County. After learning its exact location from Mo Fan, Xiaochen rushed over in half a day. "What are you planning to do?" Ao Jiao asked from within the lunar shadow saber. Xiaochen, who was hidden in the clouds, raised his head and looked at the setting sun. He said softly, "Let's wait for the sky to turn dark." When Xiaochen scanned the castle with his spiritual sense, the so-called defense of this castle was like a joke to him. He could see everything clearly, there were no secrets at all. There were 5 martial kings in the castle. However, the strongest was only a superior grade martial king. The other 4 were only inferior grade martial kings. They could not pique Xiaochen's interest at all. He could easily destroy them with the flip of his hand. This was also why Xiaochen did not think highly of the Sacred Heavenly Church from the start. No matter how good their plans were, before absolute strength, they were all just a joke. However, Ao Jiao was not as relaxed as Xiaochen. She said, "Have you ever thought that the small Cheesy County has 5 martial kings? If that is the case, how many bases does the Sacred Heavenly Church have? An organization with so many martial kings is definitely not as simple as you think." Xiaochen smiled and said, "Naturally, I have thought about it. That is why I have to wait for the sky to turn dark. When everyone here dies, there will only be true pain. Only then will this group of people realize that the person they offended is not someone they can afford to offend. That is why they will restrain themselves." Ao Jiao smiled and said, "You are not stupid. There is no need for me to worry. In that case, let's just do it." The sun set in the west, and dusk arrived. The night was as dark as ink. Layers of clouds dyed the sky, and the entire world sank into darkness. Xiaochen, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and looked at the brightly lit castle. His lips curled up into a faint smile as he dived down. In the courtyard of the Zhang clan in Mo City, the Great Hall was crowded. All the elites of the Zhang clan, Martial Grand Master and above, were gathered here. A few Martial Saint guest elders had arrived as well. No one was absent. The Zhang clan's clan head, Zhang Yan, sat in the middle of the Great Hall. Relying on the rapid development of the past 2 years, the Zhang family, which controlled most of the properties in the city, had roped in many experts. There were more than 10 martial saints and more than 100 martial grand masters. Zhang Yan was an inferior grade martial king. He was considered a peak expert in Mo City. With such a strong strength, no one in Mo City could block him. Even the once glorious Shao clan could not. As for the previous Tang clan, they had already been reduced to a third-rate clan, unable to even show their face. At this moment, the atmosphere in the hall was somewhat depressing. No one spoke. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement, caution, seriousness, and eagerness. "Patriarch, do you really plan to make a move against the Shao family tomorrow? Haven't we already agreed to the city lord's mansion's request?" Finally, an elder who was older couldn't help but ask. Zhang Yan said sullenly, "Originally, I was prepared to wait for a while longer. However, after what happened in the restaurant during the day, I'm afraid that the situation might change. I cannot wait any longer." However, I heard that the Shao clan's second young master is now a disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Could it be? A young cultivator with small eyes asked worriedly. The moment these words came out, some of the cultivators who had experienced what happened 4 years ago revealed expressions of lingering fear. Zhang Yan's heart tightened as well. 4 years ago, he did not lead a team to kill his way into the Shao clan. He was fortunate enough to survive, resulting in the Zhang clan's glory today. However, the Tang clan's clan head and the Strongling clan's clan head had died at the same time. Their clans had also declined. However, Zhang Yan quickly calmed down. He smiled and said, "There is no need to be afraid. We now have the sacred heavenly church protecting us. Furthermore, Shao Xiong's son has grown up. Isn't my eldest son as well? He is now a core disciple of the Misty Sword sect. Furthermore, that brat was chased out of the clan by Shao Xiong long ago. What are you all worried about? Now is the best opportunity. While the Shao clan thinks that we will abide by the city lord's agreement, we will deal them a fatal blow, preventing them from rising again. As long as the Shao clan is not destroyed, I will not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Decide. Those who agree to attack tomorrow, raise your hand." Most of the cultivators present did not hesitate to raise their hands. Destroying the Shao clan would be equivalent to obtaining vast resources. To them, there would be many benefits. Naturally, all of them were eager to give it a try. When the few cautious cultivators saw this situation, they could only raise their hands helplessly. Zhang Yan said in satisfaction, "Very good. We will set off tomorrow and wash the Shao clan in blood. From now on, for the sake of secrecy, no one is allowed to leave this great hall." Pu Ci. At this moment, Shao Chen was massacring the sacred heavenly church, which the Zhang clan's clan head regarded as a threat. The sacred heavenly church that the Zhang clan's clan head thought of as the sacred heavenly church died like vegetables in Shao Chen's hands. He did not even bother to draw the lunar shadow saber at his waist. When the gap in strength reached an insurmountable chasm, the advantage of numbers would only be a so-called joke. From the moment Shao Chen landed, the fate of this group of people in the castle was sealed. There was no way for them to survive. Miserable cries resounded. Shao Chen moved through the castle as though there was no one there. No one could stop him, they could not even make him pause for a moment. In the palace at the highest point of the castle, the 5 martial kings with the highest authority had sullen expressions as they looked at the murderous Shao Chen. There was a flight of steps under the 5. Shao Chen casually punched twice, and a surging fist wind swept out. He blasted the last 2 black-clothed cultivators, blocking his way in half. Finally, he arrived at the bottom of the flight of steps. His body slowly floated up as he looked at the 5 people in front. The person in the middle had the highest cultivation, a superior grade martial king. With such cultivation, he could be considered the strongest in Chizi County. However, in Shao Chen's eyes, he was still not strong enough. The black robes that person wore were clearly thicker than those of the people around him. The ancient patterns on his robes were also more complicated, making him look solemn and dignified. "Friend, no matter what the reason is, it is still not too late for you to leave. Let me tell you this clearly. The sacred heavenly church is not something that a peak superior grade martial king can bully." The first martial king from the left said coldly as he looked at Shao Chen. Although he felt fear in his heart, his tone was not overly flustered. Shao Chen said coldly, "Ignorant fool. Did I say that I am a superior grade martial king? Ka Xie." Shao Chen drew the lunar shadow saber with lightning speed. A dazzling purple light flashed, and an extremely fast saber chi flashed. The person who spoke was chopped in half by the saber chi. His body exploded and turned into a pool of blood. "We misjudged. This person is a half-step martial monarch. Split up and report to headquarters to give up on Chizi County." The person in the middle had a surprised expression as he quickly retreated. The remaining 3 split up as well, heading in different directions. Originally, the 5 of them thought that Shao Chen was only a peak superior grade martial king. With the 5 of them working together, they should have been able to kill him. However, they did not expect that after Xiao Qin drew his saber and revealed his strength, he could instantly kill them. The difference was so great that they could not make up for it with numbers or techniques. Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations. Xiao Qian's figure trembled slightly, and he split into 4 clones. Then, he chased after the fleeing black-clothed men. A cool breeze blew, and Xiao Qin hid all his killing intent. Before the 4 pursuers could react, an overwhelming killing intent erupted. Aside from the leader of the group, who managed to dodge the attack at the crucial moment, the other 4 did not have time to react before they were killed. The 5 clones merged together, and the purple light on Xiao Qian's saber became extremely resplendent. Under the huge pressure, the black-clothed man closed his eyes in despair. Roar! Just at this moment, a resonant bird cry resounded in the distance. A golden sword light flew over from afar and blocked Xiao Qian's saber. Bang! The saber and sword clashed, producing a huge energy shockwave. A strong wind blew, sending countless fallen leaves flying. A huge force spread out from the saber. Xiao Qin could not help but take 10 steps back before he could stabilize himself. Xiao Qin was astonished. The other party was actually stronger than him. Although Xiao Qin did not do much, this person who suddenly appeared was already an expert. The person who arrived was also wearing black robes. However, the patterns on the robes were made of gold. This added an ancient and dignified aura to the robes, adding a sense of grandeur to it. The black-robed man with the gold lining wore a mask that covered half his face. He looked very mysterious. Young master, this subordinate is useless. I made an error in judgment. That person is a half-step martial monarch, the superior-grade martial king said in horror as he knelt on the ground. The masked man smiled faintly and said, "You can leave first. The Cheesy County's foundation is now useless. Don't come back again." That person felt like he was relieved of a heavy burden and quickly ran into the distance. Suddenly, the silent Xiao Qin said, "I know you, even though you purposely changed your voice." "Who are you?" The person under the mask did not deny it. He smiled gently and said, "Honestly speaking, I did not expect that, given your character, you would be in closed-door cultivation instead of preparing for the 5-nation youth competition. I did not expect that you would have the time to come to Mo City." Xiao Qin said coldly, "Hiding your head but showing your tail. Let's see who you are." Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a strong wind blew in the night sky. As Xiao Qin swung his saber, the clouds in the surroundings quickly gathered above Xiao Qian's head. This was the starting stance of the lightning tribulation saber technique: wind and cloud move, wind blows, clouds move, clouds dance with the wind. Dang! The masked man smiled faintly. He did not show any fear when facing the strong Xiao Qin. The golden heavenly rock wings on his back spread out, and a dazzling light turned into a sharp sword chi. When the saber and sword clashed, the two immediately moved back. The two forces were evenly matched, and they each moved back 100 meters. The center of the churning clouds also moved back 100 meters, remaining above Xiao Qian's head. Lightning tribulation saber technique's second move, gathering wind and clouds. As the saber danced, the wind and clouds suddenly merged together. The clouds in the surroundings immediately formed a huge whirlpool above Xiao Qian's head. When the masked man saw this mysterious phenomenon, his expression remained calm. He had a carefree smile on his face. Lightning tribulation saber technique, interesting. Let's see how far you have cultivated it. The golden heavenly rock image behind the masked man flashed and appeared under him. Then, it carried him into the air. His speed tripled. Chapter 555. The dazzling sword light instantly arrived at Xiao Qian's face. The heavenly rock below him flapped its wings and blew a strong wind. Xiao Qian's clothes and hair fluttered continuously. When facing this extremely fast sword strike, his saber instantly moved, bringing with it the momentum of wind and clouds to block it. Bang! Violent energy exploded out, and the 1,000 steps beneath their feet exploded, turning into rubble. In the air, the two enormous energies were locked in a stalemate with each other. Under the curtain of the night they refracted a multicolored brilliance. Shao Chen quickly spun around in the air, dissipating the force of his saber. His opponent's simple sword strike could only be described as fast. However, when it reached an extreme speed, the force it carried was equal to a peak superior grade Earth-ranked martial technique, perhaps even stronger. Boom! Suddenly, a resounding crack of thunder came from thousands of meters in the sky. Clouds moved in all directions, gathering wind and clouds. The first three moves of the lightning tribulation saber technique were finally completed. Clouds gather in all directions, wind and lightning chop. Shao Chen shouted ferociously. Using the momentum, he executed the fourth move of the lightning tribulation saber technique. The lightning tribulation saber technique had a total of 9 moves. The first 3 moves gathered power, the middle 3 moved lightning, and the final 3 moved descended the tribulation. This was the essence of the lightning tribulation. After Shao Chen executed it, the mysterious phenomenon became like a real lightning tribulation. It slowly arrived and exploded. With the support of saber intent, this wind and lightning chop brought out its greatest might in Shao Chen's hands. Wind blew, clouds moved, and thunder roared. Starting with the momentum of wind and clouds, it erupted with the power of lightning. This was the wind and lightning chop. The saber hummed continuously as it burned with a purple lightning fire. Under the illumination of the lightning in the night sky, Shao Chen's handsome face appeared very serious and dignified in his white robes. The black-clad man smiled faintly. His expression under the mask was still very calm. He commented softly, "Not bad. Wind in front, gathering power with clouds, and lightning as a spear. You have grasped all the essentials of this move. Unfortunately, your understanding of the state of wind is still lacking. That is not how the wind blows." The masked man's gaze was as sharp as a sword. With one glance, he could see through the true state of this attack. The golden light behind him became increasingly dazzling. The intense state of light made the dark night even more dazzling than day. Xiao! The masked man held the long sword in his hand and thrust it forward. The boundless golden light behind him gathered at one point in an instant. The night, which was as bright as day just a moment ago, instantly darkened. Under the night sky, only the tip of the sword shone with boundless brilliance. The golden heavenly rock spread its wings and let out a shrill cry. Immediately, a violent storm arose, and the golden light directly shot out from the tip of the sword. Along with this gale, it rushed toward Shao Chen. As the light flickered, the powerful force caused the surrounding space to wrinkle. Shao Chen's expression changed slightly. The golden celestial Peng's final gale had actually suppressed his great gale. As the wind was suppressed, the clouds above immediately showed signs of dissipating. As the wind and clouds dissipated, the might of the lightning on the blade immediately decreased by 20%. Boom! When the golden light struck the blade, the state of light burst forth. The dark night was illuminated by the golden light once again. Shao Chen's body shot back like an arrow. His internal organs trembled slightly, and his qi and blood surged. Blood leaked out of the corner of his lips. The masked man stood upright while holding his sword. Sword intent circled around the blade, causing the sword to hum. He smiled faintly and said, "Don't try to execute this saber technique in front of me. You just learned it. The lightning tribulation saber technique is not meant for you to play around with." Shao Chen's expression remained calm. There were not many fluctuations in his heart. He said indifferently, "That might not necessarily be the case. As long as there is wind, the clouds will not scatter. As long as the wind and clouds do not scatter, the momentum will not be extinguished." Right after Shao Chen spoke, the strong wind that the golden heavenly rock blew actually started circling around him under Shao Chen's control. The clouds above gathered again, and Shao Chen's aura rose rapidly. He directly executed the 5th move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, falling lightning chop. Xiao Chen did not use any fancy moves with this attack. He directly used the might of heavenly lightning to descend from the sky and hack at the masked man. Bang! The masked man was somewhat astonished. Clearly, he had not expected Xiao Chen to react so quickly. Xiao Chen actually thought of using his opponent's wind to gather momentum again. Dang! In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen quickly swung his sword. The saber and sword clashed, and sparks flew everywhere. A vast electric energy exploded. This attack forced the masked man back several hundred meters. Cracks appeared on the golden heavenly rock behind him, looking like it would explode at any moment. Interesting. The masked man smiled faintly and waved his hand. The golden heavenly rock behind him split apart and turned into 9 beams of light descending from the sky, encasing his body. Dang! Xiao Chen did not give the masked man any time to react. He leaped up and executed the lightning tribulation saber technique with the momentum of wind and lightning, charging over again. Dang! 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 After the masked man scattered the golden heavenly rock, he seemed to have become even stronger. Under the encirclement of the 9 beams of light, he remained rooted to the ground, not moving at all. The masked man's sword gave off a bright light as it danced about. The masked man's defense was impenetrable, blocking Xiao Chen's attacks over and over again. Bathed in the light, he looked holy and solemn. When the saber intent and sword intent clashed intensely, the shock waves swept out. The vast fortress on the mountain peak rustled and crumbled. Earthly lightning tribulation. When the masked man's aura reached its peak and the thunderclouds above finally surged, Xiao Chen shouted and executed the final 3 moves of the lightning tribulation saber technique. All the lightning attributed spiritual energy in the soil of the entire heavenly jade mountain gathered on Xiao Chen's saber, resonating with the thunderclouds in the sky. This saber strike connected heaven and earth, turning the lightning of the earth into a boundless great tribulation that surged out. Bang! Aside from the area 1 meter around the masked man, the rest of the ground under his feet exploded, creating a deep, ring-shaped pit. Under the illumination of the lightning, countless pieces of soil were wrapped in electric arcs, floating in midair. Heavenly lightning tribulation. Xiao Chen's expression did not change as he executed the 8th move of the lightning tribulation saber technique. At this moment, all the lightning attributed spiritual energy in the sky turned into 9 bolts of heavenly lightning that descended and gathered on the saber. The 9 bolts of purple lightning were like ferocious flood dragons, tearing the night sky apart like a piece of black cloth. The entire space shattered under this saber strike. The golden light around the masked man turned into solid golden sand dancing up and down. His feet did not move at all as he forcefully received this saber strike. Boom! The ring-shaped pit around the masked man quickly enlarged and deepened. Soon, the entire mountain peak was blasted apart by this saber strike. When the electric light shot out, the rocks that flew up were all reduced to dust. As the dust settled, a stone pillar more than a kilometer tall appeared under the masked man's feet. The surrounding mountains, trees, forests, and ancient castles all turned to dust. Enough! Seeing that Xiao Chen was going to execute the final move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, the masked man finally moved. He casually swung his sword, and the light filling the air turned solid. Then, it turned into a heavenly sword and shot towards the surging thunderclouds above Xiao Chen's head. The world is filled with righteousness. To people, it is called righteousness. Above are the stars, below are the mountains and rivers. With the bright world, how can one fear fiendish demons? Suddenly, a resonant song resounded in the mountain forest. It was like 10,000 people singing in unison. The entire world seemed to tremble. Righteousness art. This is the orthodox sword technique of the Tianwu dynasty. How does this fellow know it? Xiao Chen thought in astonishment. The light of the heavenly sword became increasingly dazzling as the song resounded. In the end, it could no longer be seen with the naked eye. With that so, it scattered the boundless thunderclouds in the sky. When the thunderclouds scattered, the strongest move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, the divine lightning tribulation, was naturally destroyed. Xiao Chen's complexion paled slightly. He calmly calculated the situation. Although he still had the stronger four-season saber technique, he had not used it yet. But even if he used it, he guessed that he only had a 50% chance of winning against this mysterious black-cloaked man. It was obvious that the other party still had a trump card that he hadn't used. The masked man smiled and said, "Do you still want to stop me? Go back and make your preparations. With your current strength, it will be hard for you to rank within the top 10 of the five-nation youth competition." Watching him disappear from sight, Xiaochen asked Ao Jiao in his mind, "Those ancient patterns on his clothes, do you recognize them?" Ao Jiao thought for a while and said, "That is the attire of the Tianwu dynasty's remnant clan. Those patterns are actually the words of the royal clan. They are just redrawn using a kind of artistic method." As he expected, Xiaochen closed his eyes. After thinking for a long time, he opened his eyes again and said, "I know who he is. The attire of the Tianwu dynasty's remnant races, the strong state of light, the surging sword intent, and the perpetually indifferent temperament. Who else could it be but that person?" However, Xiaochen had not expected that after not meeting him for more than a year, this person's strength had grown so much. Ao Jiao said sullenly, "This person is very powerful. The final luck of the Tianwu dynasty rests on him. His future accomplishments are immeasurable. He is a great enemy of yours." Xiaochen said calmly, "There is no need to care about him. Let's go." "Go where?" "After killing the big fish, it is time to make a move on you." Xiaochen summoned out the scarlet throne and sat on it with his eyes closed. He recovered his exhausted essence and silently flew towards Mo City on a scarlet cloud in the night sky. Only a lonely stone pillar remained on the tallest and largest peak of the Hotian Jade Mountain where Xiaochen was. Dust churned around it, lingering for a long time. 4 hours later, before the sky had even brightened, that scarlet cloud appeared a kilometer above Mo City. Xiaochen opened his eyes, and all his fatigue was swept away. A bright light flickered in his eyes before he withdrew it and calmed down. He got up and walked to the edge of the scarlet cloud. Xiaochen lowered his head and looked around. His gaze stopped at the imposing Zhang clan's courtyard. "Xiao!" The scarlet throne turned into a beam of scarlet light and returned to Xiaochen's forehead. Then, Xiaochen gently floated down. In the dark night, he stood silently on the walls of the Zhang clan's courtyard like a ghost. When he saw a group of patrolling cultivators, he flicked his finger and sent out 2 purple flames. With a flick of his finger, 2 purple flames shot out like arrows. A bloody hole appeared on the foreheads of a few cultivators. They did not even have time to say a word before they quietly fell to the ground. Xiaochen extended out his spiritual sense and soon discovered the strangeness of the Great Hall. 100 elite martial grand masters, 10 odd martial saints, and the Zhang clan's clan head were all gathered here. Some of them were sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed, some were chatting and smiling, and some were drinking tea. The atmosphere in the brightly lit Great Hall was very strange. Chapter 556. Hee, I wonder what kind of expression that group of elites will have when we appear at the Shao residence tomorrow morning. They will probably be scared to death. The Shao clan has managed Seven Horn Mountain for hundreds of years. The wealth they have accumulated must be astonishing. That's right. After this operation, we will definitely be able to get a share of the benefits. Even if the Heavenly Saint cult takes the majority, the remaining bits will be enough for us to enjoy. The Shao clan still has a few girls with tender skin. They're all good stuff. I've been eyeing them for a long time. There's no need to be impatient. When the sun rises, everything will be ours. Ha. Xiaochen withdrew his spiritual sense and understood what was going on. His face showed a little fear. Luckily, the Heavenly Saint Church's situation was not very troublesome. If it had dragged on for another 4 to 6 hours, the Shao family would have been in big trouble. 100 elite martial grand masters, 10 martial saints, and an inferior grade martial king. With such a sudden attack, the Shao clan might not even survive. Raising his head to look at the eastern sky, it was pitch black there. The morning star had not yet risen. Xiaochen jumped off the wall and walked out of the city. Because of the Seven-Horn Mountain, the Shao clan's main camp was not located within the city. Instead, it was located at the foot of the mountain outside the city. The city was quiet. Apart from some merchants who had woken up early, there was no other sound. With a light leap, Xiaochen jumped over the city wall that was dozens of meters high. Without alerting any of the city guards, Xiaochen left the city. Xiaochen stopped at a bend in the road and jumped into an abandoned tea house. He took out a bow from his universe ring and waited quietly with his eyes closed. That bow was the Soul Slayer bow. As Xiaochen's strength increased, the might of the bow would also increase. He rarely used it, but at this moment, he could put it to good use. This was the only way to the Shao clan. If he wanted to go to the Shao clan, he had to pass through this place. Time passed slowly. It was unknown when the morning star had appeared, but the eastern sky was faintly turning white. In the great hall of the Zhang clan in Mo City, Zhang Yan looked at the morning star in the east and said, "Let's go. We will wash the Shao clan in blood and monopolize Mo City. Wash the Shao clan in blood and monopolize Mo City. Wash the Shao clan in blood and monopolize Mo City." The hundreds of elite cultivators in the hall opened their eyes and shouted excitedly. Under Zhang Yan's lead, the 100-odd men charged out of the city, brimming with killing qi. At this moment, the sky had already begun to brighten, and there were already a few pedestrians on the streets. Looking at the Zhang clan elites who were brimming with killing intent, their faces warped in horror. "I'm afraid that Mo City is going to change," an old man said with a sigh. After exiting the city gate, the speed of this group of people increased by a lot, and their faces were brimming with eager expressions. Thinking of the vast resources of the Shao clan, Xiao Chen's right hand, which was holding the weapon, trembled slightly. Glory, splendor, wealth, and rank were sufficient for them to enjoy for the rest of their lives. One of the Zhang clan's guest elders, who was beside Zhang Yan, asked in a relaxed manner, "Clan head, what do you think the chances of success are for this operation?" Zhang Yan chuckled and said, "Is there a need to ask? 2 years ago, the envoy personally made a move, and Xiao Xiong was severely injured. The other experts that he roped in have all left. With just the strength of the Shao clan, there is only one word for them, death. What did you say to the envoy?" "I remember that he specifically reminded us not to touch the Shao clan." Zhang Yan said calmly, "This group of people only cares about money. I will give him 80% of the gains this time. What else can he say? Brothers, put in more effort and run faster. Kill all the men of the Shao clan. Gold, silver, treasures, natural treasures, and all sorts of beauties will all be yours." Zhang Yan turned his head and shouted, raising the morale of the group once again. Beauties and wealth could always boost the morale of the group at a crucial moment. At this moment, the morale of the group was at an all-time high. The guest elder at the side took the opportunity to flatter Zhang Yan, saying, "With this morale, we should be able to deal with the Shao clan in 2 hours." Zhang Yan nodded and smiled. "Everything is possible." Wang. Right after Zhang Yan spoke, an arrow flew over. Before the guest elder's smile faded, a bloody hole appeared in his chest. That arrow did not lose any momentum. So. It pierced through the chests of another 10 people before stabbing deeply into the ground. The tail of the arrow trembled. Wang! 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 The arrows in the distance tore through the air, flying over continuously. They were so fast that one could not even see their shadows. Only miserable cries rang out, and 10 people immediately died. The speed of the arrows was simply too fast. In just a few seconds, 30-odd people had already died. All of them had died with one arrow piercing through their chests, their hearts shattering. Enemy attack! Get down! All of you, get down! Zhang Yan's expression changed drastically as he shouted in panic. The remaining 70-odd elite cultivators all paled in fright. They had all been alive a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, they had all died. This situation was too terrifying. Show! 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 3 cultivators who reacted slower did not have time to get down. The huge force of the arrows sent them flying into the air. Protective essence and the heart-protecting mirror did not help at all. What in the world is going on? Horror spread through the crowd. All the cultivators prostrated themselves on the ground, not even daring to raise their heads. They could not figure out what had happened. Earlier, they were all thinking about how to wash the Shao clan in blood, how to enjoy the beauties and treasures. Zhang Yan's cultivation was the highest. He activated his vision and looked into the distance. He saw an intersection 2 kilometers away. A white-robed youth stood in an abandoned tea-house. He held a bow in his hand and drew the bowstring. He looked at the group expressionlessly. Damn it! How dare you kill the people of my Zhang clan? You must be tired of living. Zhang Yan's eyes looked like they were going to spew fire. He said to the few martial saint experts beside him, that person is in the tea-house 2 kilometers away. The few of you, sneak over. The few martial saints who were called out were extremely unwilling. However, when they saw Zhang Yan's sullen face, they could only carefully bow and walk forward. Bang! 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 The moment these martial saints raised their heads, an arrow pierced through their foreheads before they could even cry out miserably. Run! Such a horrifying scene happened before everyone's eyes, scaring the group of people. They immediately got up and fled in a sorry state. At this moment, they had completely forgotten about washing the Shao clan in blood, monopolizing Mo City, glory, splendor, and riches. Since they were already dead, what was the point of having more? Zhang Yan panicked. He called out a few times, but no one listened to him. All of them only cared about fleeing, not caring about anything else. However, this group of people were not even martial kings. How could they outrun Shao Chen? In a flash, Shao Chen moved several hundred meters. Zhang Yan drew his bow and fired. Many lives were lost to the arrows. Then, he boldly charged at Shao Chen while roaring angrily. However, the arrow that flew at him completely frightened him out of his wits. That arrow was too fast. He had to use his cloning technique before he managed to shift his body at the critical moment. The arrow pierced through his chest. Zhang Yan managed to keep his life. He could not care about anything else and joined the fleeing group. In the end, no matter how fast they ran, they could not be faster than Shao Chen. Even without the blood flame shoes, Shao Chen could move at Mach 2. How could he outrun Zhang Yan? From the moment this group of people left the city, they were destined to meet only one end, death. Soon, only Zhang Yan remained of the 100-odd people. Corpses littered the streets of the city gates, a ghastly sight. Blood flowed continuously from Zhang Yan's chest. He panicked as he ran for his life into the city. Shao Chen had a calm expression as he knocked an arrow and drew back the bowstring. Then, he marked Zhang Yan's chest with his spiritual sense. When the bow was fully drawn, he released. Shao Chen used all his strength in this arrow. The injured Zhang Yan had no chance of dodging. As Zhang Yan fled in a fluster, he could not help but turn his head to look. This time, he no longer had a chance to turn around. The arrow pierced his chest with a xiao sound. A huge force burst out, carrying his body up into the air. Finally, he hung on the city wall before stopping with a bang. The morning sun had just risen, and its rays shone in all directions. Before Zhang Yan died, he saw the sun rise one last time. However, he could not figure out what was going on. The words, "everything is possible," seemed to echo in his ears. The morning sun rose, covering the ground. The tightly shut doors and windows of the Shao clan's courtyard opened. The Shao clan disciples walked out of their rooms and headed for the drill grounds. The Shao clan's clan head, Shao Xiong, had arrived long ago. He wore tight robes and looked at the Shao clan disciples with a stern expression. Morning training begins. Be alert. No one is allowed to slack off. Following Xiao Xiong's command, the disciples started to practice the Xiao clan's fist technique in an orderly fashion. Fist winds blew, and cheers shook the ground. As the sun shone on the drill grounds, the Xiao clan disciples looked spirited. What they didn't know was that just 2 hours ago, the Xiao family had just escaped from a calamity. They also did not know that there was a person in the distance watching them. On a high ground 4 kilometers away from the Xiao clan's courtyard, Xiao Chen looked straight at the people in the drill grounds. He circulated his essence to his eyes. To Xiao Chen, 4 kilometers was nothing. He could see every blade of grass, every tree, every flower, and every tree in the entire Xiao clan's courtyard. Xiao Chen just watched quietly, revealing a peaceful smile on his handsome face. His white clothes and hair fluttered in the cool breeze. Speaking of which, if you keep watching like this, are you really not going in? Ao Jiao's melodious voice came from the lunar shadow saber. Xiao Chen shook his head and said, "There is no need. I will just watch." Ao Jiao continued to ask, "You have done so much for the Xiao clan. Your father will definitely not blame you. Are you really not going to ask him why he chased you away?" Xiao Chen did not say anything. After a long time, he withdrew his gaze and said slowly, "How can there be a father who chases his son away in this world? The pressure he is under is definitely greater than mine. My strength is not enough to relieve him of the pressure in his heart. It is best not to ask." If he did not have enough strength to ask, it would only increase the pressure on the other party. When he was strong enough, everything would come to light. Zzz. Suddenly, the remnant moisture in the air started churning. Xiao Chen stretched out his hands and controlled the moisture. Life bestowal spell. With a shout, the moisture turned into 14 lively birds under Xiao Chen's control, chirping non-stop. Chapter 557. Xiao Chen took out the remaining 14,000-year-old spirit herbs from the universe ring and tied them to the little bird's feet. Then, he waved his hand and said, "Go." The little bird circled around in the air before flapping its wings and flying back to the Xiao residence. After doing all this, Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze from the Xiao residence with some reluctance. Then, he turned and left. The morning sun shone on Xiao Chen's back, leaving a long black shadow on the street. It moved up and down continuously, moving further and further away. No one in the huge Xiao residence knew that the youth who was chased out of the Xiao residence after kneeling 3 times 4 years ago had returned and taken a look at them from afar. He had come quietly and left quietly. He had killed a group of people and left behind his own thoughts. He did not drag things out and left in a carefree manner. Half a month later, Xiao Chen returned to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and entered closed-door cultivation. There were only 3 months left until the 5-nation youth competition. Xiao Chen was making his final preparations. At the same time, all the genius cultivators in this starry sky were making their final efforts for the moment when everyone would fight for the peak. After the Tianmu continent's Thunder King, there had been no new Emperor Wu in the past 5,000 years. After 5,000 years of waiting, a flourishing age was about to descend. The 5 great nations, the ancient desolate land, the barbarian race of the north, and the boundless sea, there were countless geniuses under the starry sky. Who would stand out and stand at the peak? Who would be the true main character on the dazzling stage under the continent? The battle at the peak 3 months from now would be revealed. In a forbidden land of the Divine Dragon Palace in the eastern boundless sea, there was a small spatial tear. If one passed through it, they would reach the true demonic world. There was a 4-sided golden barrier around the spatial tear. 4 old martial monarchs of the Divine Dragon Palace guarded this place day and night. At this moment, the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Shenyuan Zhantian, rode on his royal dragon horse. He held the heavenly war halberd and stood calmly in front of the forbidden land. The current dragon king of the Divine Dragon Palace stood beside Shenyuan Zhantian. The Dragon King looked at Shenyuan Zhantian and said, "Zhantian, are you sure you want to enter the spatial tear? Do you know what it means to pass through the spatial rift?" Shenyuan Zhantian nodded and said, "I only have 3 months. The geniuses of the great Gene Nation are not simple. I need to enter the deep abyss demonic world for a true experiential training. The Dragon King said no more. Since you have decided, I will not stop you. If you die in there, I will choose a new successor. The barrier slowly opened and Xianyuan Zhantian rode on the royal dragon horse without hesitation. He laughed loudly and said, "Old fellow, you only know how to curse me. Don't worry, I will definitely take your position. No one can replace me, Xianyuan Zhantian, in ruling the 4 seas for you." As the Dragon King watched Xianyuan Zhantian disappear into the crack, he smiled silently and said, "This confidence is sufficient." Back mountains of Qingyun Peak, in the first month since Xiaochen returned, he focused on perfecting the lightning tribulation saber technique. During his fight with the masked man, Xiaochen finally learned of the lightning tribulation saber technique's weaknesses and weaknesses. Wind and clouds gather before thunder roars. Xiaochen's state of wind was too weak. As a result, the masked man was able to see the weakness of the lightning tribulation saber technique's mysterious phenomenon with one glance. Now that Xiaochen knew the weakness, he could think of a way to make up for it. This was not a difficult thing to do. In 1 month, he had already made up for most of the weaknesses of the lightning tribulation saber technique. If he ran into the masked man again, Xiaochen was confident that the masked man would not be able to find the weakness immediately, causing the mysterious phenomenon to scatter and the might of the saber technique to decrease significantly. What gave Xiaochen a headache was the 4th move of the 4-season saber technique. What state should he use for winter before he could find the true saber technique that belonged to him? However, Xiaochen was not in too much of a rush. He practiced the martial techniques that he was familiar with during the day and continued to cultivate the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation at night, strengthening his essence. There were some things that required comprehension. If one could not see through it, the more one thought about it, the more one could not extricate oneself from it. It would only add to one's frustrations. When one completely calmed down, there would be light at the end of the tunnel. Suddenly, one would understand. The problem that had been troubling one for a long time would be easily solved. Back then, when the founder of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion created the Lightning Tribulation Saber technique, it was due to a chance encounter. He saw a spirit beast undergoing its tribulation and gained some comprehension. Hence, Xiaochen was not in a rush. He only treated it as a whetstone for tempering his mental state. Even if he could never comprehend it, the growth of his mental state would be sufficient to make up for the loss of this saber technique. Who could say for sure whether it was a gain or a loss? The sun rose and set, the clouds gathered and dispersed. The remaining 3 months of the 5-nation youth competition decreased by the days. On this particular day, Xiaochen was cultivating in his room with his eyes closed. The moonlight shone through the window and landed quietly on Xiaochen's bed. Ka Xie. Suddenly, the 2 superior-grade spirit stones in his hand shattered. Xiaochen opened his eyes and looked at the spirit stones drained of their spiritual energy. He shook his head helplessly. Now that Xiaochen was a half-step martial monarch, he could absorb spiritual energy even faster. 2 superior-grade spirit stones were not enough for 1 night of cultivation. As for the crystalline qi whirlpool in his dantian, it was like a bottomless pit. He was far from reaching a bottleneck. In order to reach martial monarch and refine quintessence, Xiaochen needed to push his cultivation to the bottleneck and open his sea of consciousness. Xiaochen muttered, "I opened my sea of consciousness long ago. However, my cultivation is still not up to par. Even if I had another year, I would not be able to reach the peak of half-step martial monarch." Xiaochen casually glanced at the ground. The pale moonlight looked like frost as it struck the ground. It made one feel sad for some reason. The moonlight is like frost, the flowing water hurts. Beauty changes easily, where does one find home? Suddenly, this line of a poem appeared in Xiaochen's mind. He smiled faintly and said, "However, this kind of sad emotion is not suitable for me." Xiaochen took out another 2 superior-grade spirit stones and prepared to cultivate. Suddenly, he stopped. It was like a bolt of lightning flashed in his mind. "I have been thinking about winter. Aside from snow, What else could represent winter? Isn't this what I seek? That's right. That's right. Xiao Chen laughed loudly and said excitedly, the ancients did not lie to me. Once I comprehend it, I will soar to the heavens. I will be suddenly enlightened, suddenly enlightened. Xiao Chen laughed loudly. Then, he picked up the lunar shadow saber beside him and rushed out of the door. The final move of the four-season saber technique used frost as a guide, deriving the state of grief. In the forest, Xiao Chen closed his eyes and entered deep thought. The comprehension he gained earlier replayed in his mind as he sank into deep thought. After a while, Xiao Chen opened his eyes. He grasped the hilt of the lunar shadow saber with his right hand and drew it forward. Xiao Chen slowly circulated the four-season saber technique as he moved through the forest. The surrounding air dropped rapidly as the saber light danced. Layers of faint mist slowly descended from the trees and frost abruptly covered the ground within a radius of 1,000 meters. The moonlight is like frost, the flowing water hurts. Xiao Chen shouted and casually swung his saber. The state of grief contained in the saber burst out along with the frost. Shwa! 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 In that instant, all the trees in the forest silently split apart. Ka-xie! Ka-xie! Crisp sounds rang out continuously. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber, and all the trees within a kilometer fell. The vast forest disappeared, leaving only a layer of frost on the ground. This move did not have a great aura or boldness. It only turned the saber technique into frost and infused it with the state of grief. Silently, he killed the other party. By the time the other party woke up, it was already too late to change anything. It was just like how all the trees within a kilometer, brimming with life, lost all signs of life with one saber strike, leaving only a layer of white mist. Xiao Chen muttered to himself, the fourth move of this four-season saber technique shall be called Frostmourne, then. Since then, Xiao Chen had comprehended the four-season saber technique, Spring Thunder Chop, Burning to Desolation, Fated Person in Autumn Waters, Frostmourne, and Four Seasons. He had succeeded in creating a saber technique that was infinitely close to a heaven-ranked saber technique. He had created this saber technique all by himself, it was unique. As for the final move, Cycle of Four Seasons, he did not need to comprehend anything else. This was because this cycle of four seasons only had one meaning, endlessly growing and multiplying. Desolation of time, the world changing into mulberry fields. Everything in the world, be it a tall mountain or a vast ocean, would wither and wither one day. The sky would wither and the earth would wither and grow old. Even the vast ocean would turn into mulberry fields. Only plants and life would grow and die, never stopping. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter would never change under the cycle of the four seasons. Time continued to flow by at an unhurried pace. The start of the five-nation youth competition approached day by day. 2 months, 1 month, half a month, soon, only 10 days remained before the five-nation youth competition. In the Haotian sect of the Great Jin Nation, the leader of the 5 great nations in the Tianwu continent, as one of the 10 great sects of the Great Jin Nation, the Haotian sect naturally had many talents. However, Yu Chenxi was the peak genius of the sect. Ever since she obtained the daybreak flower, Yu Chenxi had become the strongest genius in the sect. Ever since Yu Chenxi obtained the daybreak flower, his cultivation had soared like a whirlwind. His morning sun incantation had also advanced by leaps and bounds. Yu Chenxi had left many of his fellow sect members in the dust. They could only look up to him. On this particular day, Yu Chenxi's daybreak peak suddenly released thousands upon thousands of rainbow-colored lights. As the light shone, it looked boundlessly beautiful. The disciples passing by quickly stopped to take a look. They all had astonished expressions on their faces. Rainbow-colored lights. This is a mysterious phenomenon that only occurs when one reaches the 13th layer of the morning sun incantation. The great world is coming out of closed-door cultivation, a disciple wearing the uniform of the Haotian sect said excitedly. First senior sister has been in closed-door cultivation for 3 months. When she comes out, her strength will definitely soar. Quick, look! The elders are here. The appearance of the rainbow-colored lights actually startled the elders. 3 figures flew over from the main peak of the Hautian sect. They were 3 old men with extremely strong auras. As they stood together, the wind behind them instantly stopped blowing. The air froze, and the many disciples below found it hard to breathe. One of the old men revealed a gratified smile. He said softly, "No one has been able to practice this morning sun incantation to the 13th layer for 1,000 years already. Chensi has truly entered the ranks of the peak experts of the great Jin nation." The gray-robed old man at the side also had a wide smile on his face. He muttered, "First Elder, with the Dawn Kingdom's current strength, it should be able to get into the top 10 of the 5-nation youth competition." Chapter 558. The first elder in the middle said sullenly, "It is hard to say. The Drifting Snow Sword Sect, the Sun Moon Gate, and the Supreme Unity Palace all have powerful geniuses, not to mention the 10,000 years of accumulations of the 8 noble clans. We can only be sure when she comes out." Boom! Suddenly, a resplendent clump of light burst out from the bright multicolored light. That light was like the morning sun rising slowly. The beautiful Yuchensi was in the middle of the light. Under the illumination of the multicolored light, she looked like a fairy, elegant and refined. "She is out." All the multicolored light suddenly gathered together and formed a rainbow bridge. Yuchensi walked on the rainbow bridge towards the 3 elders. Chensi greets first martial uncle, second martial uncle, and third martial uncle. Yuchensi smiled and bowed slightly. The first elder carefully sized up Yuchensi. His face was filled with shock. He muttered, "A peak consummation half-step martial monarch." Yuchensi revealed a faint smile and said, "I have also comprehended the state of light and state of cloud to their limits. I have also reached great perfection in the morning sun fist." The first elder laughed loudly and said, "Good. Now, you are finally qualified to fight for the last 2 spots in the top 10. The 8 noble clans had 10,000 years of inheritance. Every noble clan had produced a martial emperor. Their descendants all had the bloodline of martial emperors. All of them had astonishing talent and were outstanding people. In every 5-nation youth competition, the top 8 would be filled with different people. The only thing that did not change was that the top 8 were all disciples of the 8 noble clans. This was a fixed pattern that could not be changed. Furthermore, there had never been any surprises. Even for someone as strong as Yuchensi, the first elder could only say that she could fight for the 9th and 10th spots. It was impossible for her to get into the top 8. However, Yuchensi's expression did not change much. She only raised her head and looked in the direction of the great Qin nation in the distance. Her eyes revealed some anticipation. Yuchensi muttered to herself, "I wonder how strong that fellow is." Now that 2 years had passed, he had relied on the daybreak flower to improve his strength by leaps and bounds. Could he, who was alone and without a sect, still catch up? In the Evil Moon Pavilion, one of the top 10 super sects in Jin Nation, there was a moon-shaped lake. The top genius of the Evil Moon Pavilion, Baijan, stood expressionlessly in the middle of the lake. At first glance, the lake was calm and tranquil. But if one looked carefully, under the mirror-like surface of the lake, there were countless specks of red light that were constantly jumping. Their numbers were almost the same as the lake, half to half. If one's cultivation reached martial monarch and could extend out their mental energy, they would be shocked to discover that the specks of red light were actually hot sparks. Water and fire countered each other. This was the eternal law of nature. But at this moment, there were so many strange sparks burning in the vast lake. Wave of raging ice flames. Suddenly, Baijan, who had a calm expression, shouted. The lake water that had been suppressed for a long time suddenly erupted, the surface of the lake surged. Countless pillars of water turned into ice, and the sparks burned into raging flames that soared into the sky. Finally, they merged into ice and fire, forming a huge shockwave that headed for a mountain range in the distance. Bang! A huge amount of energy erupted. The small mountain peak that was over a kilometer tall was blasted into powder by the impact of the shockwave. That was not all. Unexpectedly, a huge pit appeared in the ground below the mountain. It was 100 meters wide and bottomless. Baijian revealed a maniacal smile. He laughed loudly and said, I finally achieved the perfect ice and fire compatibility. Xiao Chen. You managed to escape with your life in the boundless sea. In the Five-Nation Youth Competition, I will make you lose face in front of everyone. Tianmu Continent, Great Chu Nation, Heavenly Sword Gate, Ding Fengqiu stood on a mountain peak with his hands behind his back. 18 swords danced in the air in front of him, forming all sorts of formations. The long swords trembled in the air, giving off a buzzing sound. Everywhere they passed, a pitch-black tear appeared in the air, disappearing in a flash. These swords could even tear space temporarily. It was hard to imagine the might of these swords. Senior brother, you can control 18 swords with your defensive sword technique. Jin Wuji, who had rushed over from behind, exclaimed in shock when he saw this scene. Xiao! Ding Fengqiu casually withdrew the 18 swords into his spatial ring. He smiled gently and said, yes. However, I cannot maintain it for long. Jin Wuji said joyfully, that is great. That Xiao Chen is definitely not a match for you. With 18 swords flying out, no one under martial monarch can receive them. Ding Fengqiu appeared very calm. He smiled faintly and said, that is hard to say. Let's not talk about this for now. Why are you looking for me? Jin Wuji recovered his wits and said, the sect master told me to look for you. He said that the Five-Nation Youth Competition will start in 7 days. He wants you to go and choose a secret treasure. Let's go, then. Similar situations occurred in every corner of the Tianmu continent. As the Five-Nation Youth Competition entered its countdown, all the genius cultivators in closed-door cultivation came out one after another. All the genius cultivators in closed-door cultivation came out one after another, filled with boundless confidence as they waited for that day to arrive. In the back mountains of Qingyun Peak, Xiao Chen sat before a waterfall. He looked somewhat leisurely as he watched the never-ending waterfall fall. 3 days ago, Xiao Chen had completely mastered the final move of the four-season saber technique, Cycle of Seasons. He named it Cycle of Seasons Endless Growth. He had already comprehended the Lightning Tribulation saber technique to great perfection and the four-season saber technique to the point of comprehending it. As for his other martial techniques, such as the Battle Sage Origins Changing Character Formula, the Strength Character Formula, the exclusive saber technique of the Blue Dragon Martial Spirit, the Dragon Subduing Slash, and the exclusive movement technique of the Blue Dragon Cloud Soaring Art. Due to various reasons, Xiao Chen could not cultivate the peak martial techniques of the Tianmu continent for now. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen decided not to cultivate bitterly. Instead, he came here every day to look at the waterfall and chat with Ao Jiao. He waited quietly for that day to arrive, tempering his mental state. The Battle Sage Origins Changing Character Formula required Xiao Chen's cultivation to reach a deeper level before he could continue practicing it. Otherwise, he would only be able to cultivate it on the surface, and his opponent would be able to see through it easily. As for the Strength Character Formula, although it was hidden in the Lunar Shadow Saber, there was no mental cultivation method to it. Xiao Chen was confused and could not learn it. Xiao Chen had already used the Dragon Subduing Slash twice. The painful experience from back then was still fresh in his mind. If he wanted to live, how would he dare to use it again? Xiao Chen guessed that the requirement for this Dragon Subduing Slash was not a cultivation realm but a physical body. Only when the physical body reached a certain level and could withstand the horrifying shockwaves would one be able to control it freely. After you advance to Martial Monarch, you should be able to cultivate the Battle Sage Origins Changing Character Formula. Sangmu did not rely on the Changing Character Formula to become famous in his early years. Ao Jiao, who was in the Lunar Shadow Saber, said rather calmly, however, there is another possibility. Perhaps you are not suitable for cultivating the Battle Sage Origins. Hence, you have not been able to materialize your opponent's martial technique. Xiao Chen smiled calmly and said, it's fine. Everyone has their own path. I am a bladesman and the Thunder King is a swordsman. It would be difficult for me to walk his path again. A saber was a saber and a sword was a sword. There was an insurmountable gap between a bladesman and a swordsman. A bladesman was tyrannical and mighty. Aside from that, there was no other special characteristic. A swordsman was different. The sword was a gentleman of weapons. No matter how tyrannical or mighty one was, there would always be a trace of elegance. Of course, there was no definite conclusion as to which of the two was stronger. It all depended on the individual's strength. Ao Jiao was somewhat surprised. She said, "I underestimated your trashy master. What you mean is that you do not want to be the second Thunder King. You only want to be your white-robed bladesman, Xiaochen." Xiaochen smiled faintly and did not deny it. He changed the topic and said, "I have always heard that the Thunder King defeated many noble clan geniuses in the Five-Nation Youth Competition. Speaking of which, what rank did he obtain in the Five-Nation Youth Competition?" The era of the Thunder King was the same as now. It was also a time when geniuses sprouted. There were many geniuses and countless heroes. Furthermore, the name of the Thunder King, Sangmu, had spread throughout the Tianmu continent after the battle on the Wind Cloud platform. However, the great Qin nation did not know which rank he obtained back then because it was too long ago. Ao Jiao was about to say something when she heard footsteps. She could only stop herself and say, "Someone is coming." "Ha ha! Xiao Chen, you are really free. You still have the time to look at the waterfall?" Lu Suifeng walked over with a radiant smile on his face. He did not stop smiling. Xiao Chen looked back, and a light flashed in his eyes. He performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Congratulations on breaking through to Martial King." Lu Suifeng chuckled and said, "I just broke through yesterday. This is all thanks to your spirit stones and spirit herbs. Otherwise, I would not have been able to break through the bottleneck of Martial King so quickly." Xiao Chen said calmly, "It is just a small matter. Why are you looking for me?" Lu Suifeng revealed a helpless expression. He said, I really don't know what to say to you. There are still 7 more days before the registration period for the Five-Nation Youth Competition. We have to depart immediately. The First Elder is currently gathering all the qualified participants of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The requirements for this year's Five-Nation Youth Competition were already announced. As Lu Suifeng expected, they had to be martial kings below the age of 24. Compared to the previous Five-Nation Youth Competition, this was an entire grade higher. However, there would probably be more people participating. Heaven Viewing Platform. In the main hall of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Xiaochen saw the other participants of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Aside from him and Murong Chong, there were 4 others. They were all people that Xiaochen knew: Qianduan Peaks Mu Chen, Tianyue Peaks Zhang Lai, Yun Kursen, and the newly advanced Martial King, Lu Suifeng. There were more than 5,000 people in the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Only 6 people qualified to sign up. This was a rather unsightly number. Xiaochen nodded and smiled at the others, taking it as a form of greeting. Since the First Elder had not arrived yet, they started chatting casually. They were all old acquaintances. They had participated in a life and death adventure together in a different space. They did not have any grudges against each other. Soon, they started chatting happily. Only Murong Chong, who was proud and aloof, did not join in. Mu Chen looked at Xiao Chen and said to Yun Kursen and Zhang Lai ruefully, "Back then, in the different space, although the 3 of us were weaker than each other, it was not that big. In less than 2 years, Xiao Chen managed to fool us." Chapter 559. Xiao Chen said calmly, "Aside from a cultivator's talent and aptitude, if a cultivator wants to succeed, they need fortuitous encounters and luck. Perhaps in another 2 years, a fortuitous encounter will help all of you." Yun Kursen shook her head and said, "I feel that everything you said is secondary. How far a cultivator can go depends on the cultivator's character in the end." The group chatted about some other topics. Not long after, the First Elder, Jiang Qi, brought the Second Elder and the Third Elder over. Jiangqi got right to the point. The five-nation youth competition will be held in the Great Jin Nation's Dragon Sealing Mountain Range. It is too far from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. We have to depart early. If there are any matters, I can give you an hour to prepare. We will depart immediately after 1 hour. Xiao Chen and the others shook their heads to indicate that there was no need to prepare. Jiangqi nodded and said, "Let's depart now, then." The group followed Jiangqi out. At some point in time, a crystalline jade ship had stopped in the empty space in front of the hull. Lu Suifeng was somewhat astonished. He said, "This is Marshal Grand Anshin's personal golden jade glazed ship. It is a high-ranked superior-grade secret treasure. Is Marshal Grand Anshin going with us?" Jiangqi nodded with a complicated expression. He said, "Yes. All the sects in the world have to go to the Dragon Sealing Mountain Range. We cannot tarnish the reputation of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Furthermore, some things are not as simple as you think. We have to show off our strength." On the bow of the ship, the noble Shen Manjun smiled faintly and said, "Jiangqi, there is no need to tell the juniors about these things. Come on up." On a mountain peak in the Misty Sword sect in the Great Qin Nation, Chu Chaoyun had a deep gaze as he looked at the churning clouds in front. It was unknown what he was thinking. The Misty Sword sect's sect master, who was behind him, said sullenly, "Chaoyun, although the Misty Sword sect has 9 people qualified to register this time, aside from you, none of them can clear the first stage." Chu Chaoyun turned around and smiled faintly. "Sect master, rest assured. Be it for myself or for the Misty Sword sect's help, I will do my best in the five-nation youth competition." Upon hearing this, the Misty Sword sect's sect master felt slightly more at ease. Chu Chaoyun's origins were mysterious. Even the Misty Sword sect's sect master could not completely figure out his strength. If Chu Chaoyun was willing to use his true strength, he would definitely be able to enter the top 20. The luck that the Misty Sword sect obtained was sufficient to allow the Misty Sword sect to stand firm in this great age. "Alright then, I won't say anything unnecessary. We'll depart tomorrow. You should prepare for today." In the southern boundless sea, the South Sea's 4 prodigies gathered before a table. Their faces were filled with excitement, all of them looking eager to try. "It's finally time to go. I've wanted to meet the geniuses of Dajin for a long time. I want to see if the 8 big families and 10 major factions are as powerful as the legends say." "Don't be too confident, third brother. Although the density of the spiritual qi in the Endless Ocean isn't lower than that of Dajin, our heritage is still inferior to that of Dajin. Don't take it lightly. Big brother is right. However, us 4 brothers are not bad either. Since we were able to make a name for ourselves in the Endless Ocean, we will definitely do well in the continent." The leader of the Southern Sea's 4 prodigies picked up his wine cup and said ferociously, "That's right. It is fine if we do not go out. However, when we go out, we must make a name for ourselves as the Southern Sea's 4 prodigies. Come, let's toast to us 4 brothers. Let's hope that we can all make it into the top 50. That's a must. Cheers! Cheers! Bang!" The 4 clinked their cups and drained them in one go. Then, they smashed their wine cups and laughed loudly. Then, they headed for the warship that had already stopped. In the eastern boundless sea, in the forbidden land of the Divine Dragon Palace, 4 martial monarch elders looked anxiously at the spatial crack in the barrier. The hope of the Divine Dragon Palace, the Eastern Sea's little dragon king Shenyuan Zhantian, had already been in the deep abyss demonic world for more than 2 months. Now, 3 days had passed since the appointed time. However, the Eastern Sea's little dragon king Shenyuan Zhantian had not come out yet. Given Shenyuan Zhantian's memory, he would definitely not forget the appointed time. Unless there was only one possibility, he died. The 4 martial monarch elders all had unsightly expressions. Shenyuan Zhantian was the Divine Dragon Palace, no, the entire boundless sea. He was a rare genius cultivator in the past few thousand years. He would definitely become a martial sage in the future. The Divine Dragon Palace had spent countless resources on him. If such a person died, the Divine Dragon Palace would not be able to bear the consequences. Your Majesty, we have already waited for 3 days and 3 nights. Let's choose someone else. The Divine Dragon Palace needs someone to lead the team, one of the elders could not help but say. The Dragon King's sharp eyes appeared very calm. He said in a sonorous voice, "There is no need to say anything more. Zhangtian is worth me waiting for another 7 days and 7 nights. In this glorious age, the rise of the Divine Dragon Palace will belong to him." Dong! 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 Right after the Dragon King spoke, heavy footsteps came from the barrier. The footsteps were very heavy. Every step was very heavy, causing the ground to tremble. The expressions of the 4 elders changed greatly. They thought that a powerful demonic beast had come out of the spatial crack, so they quickly turned their heads to look. They saw Xianyuan Zhangtian covered in wounds from the spatial crack. His purple robes were dyed red. He carried the royal dragon horse, which looked even more severely injured than him, on his shoulder. The 4 revealed expressions of extreme shock. The royal dragon horse weighed tens of thousands of kilograms. Could it be that Xianyuan Zhangtian carried it all the way back with his injured body? Bang! Xianyuan Zhangtian held the heavenly war halberd in his right hand and casually swung it forward. The barrier that could trap a rank 8 demonic beast immediately shattered. "Sorry, something unexpected happened to Brother Ma. I was trapped for a long time. I hope I am not late." Ancient desolate land, under the vast heavenly extermination lake, a huge palace made of white jade floated quietly at the bottom of the lake. This palace was the mysterious headquarters of the Myriad Fiend Palace. Beside a garden in the palace, Bai seriously practiced the heart-nourishing universe sword technique. As the sword light danced around, the wind howled. It was like the world had turned upside down. A bright light flickered at his chest. As the light flickered, the might of the chain sword technique more than doubled. That flickering light was the heart of a swordsman that countless swordsmen yearned for even in their dreams. After 2 years, Bai's pure and charming face lost some of its childishness and gained a youthful charm. Her curvaceous figure also became more graceful. Coupled with her indistinct demonic aura, it gave the young girl a different kind of beauty. One look at her would make one sink into her. Dong! 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 Footsteps rang out. Bai sheathed her sword and turned her head to look. She discovered Mu Xinya walking over. Mu Xinya immediately revealed a joyful smile on her pretty face. She quickly ran over and said, "Elder sister Xinya, are we going to the great Jin nation?" As one of the 3 peak geniuses of the Myriad Fiend Palace, naturally, Mu Xinya had to represent the Myriad Fiend Palace in the 5-nation youth competition. She rubbed Bai's head and said, "Yes, we are leaving soon." Bai continued to ask, "Elder sister Xinya, elder brother Xiaochen will definitely participate, right?" Mu Xinya revealed a smile on her quiet face. Xiaochen's face appeared in her mind. She thought about how heroic he was in the ancient desolate tower. Mu Xinya nodded seriously and said, "He will definitely go." Bai smiled happily and said, "That's great. I can finally see elder brother Xiaochen." Shen Manjuan's golden jade glazed ship flew at Mach 3 in the clouds, heading for the great Jin nation's dragon sealing mountain. Several warships could be seen in the sky. Like the golden jade glazed ship, they were all heading in the same direction. Aside from the warships, there were also many cultivators traveling alone, riding on flying spirit beasts. As far as the eye could see, there were quite a few martial artists separated by a certain distance. Naturally, these people were all heading for the great Jin nation's dragon sealing mountain. However, only a small portion of them were there to prepare the 100 participants. Most of them were there to watch the excitement. The 5-nation youth competition was the start of the Age of Geniuses. It was a once-in-a-thousand-years event. It attracted the attention of all the cultivators in the continent. Everyone wanted to go and take a look. In this Age of Geniuses, who would be the true main character? Who would have the last laugh on the stage of competition? Who would be the true main character? However, the seats were limited. The spectator stands of the wind cloud platform could not accommodate all the cultivators. They had to hurry. If they were late, they would have made a wasted trip. The golden jade glazed ship moved very fast. Few spirit beasts or warships could keep up with it. Xiao Chen and the others watched the scenery on the deck and chatted casually. Suddenly, Xiao Chen thought of something. He asked, "Why do I not see Ling Liusu? With her strength, she should have become a martial king after cultivating in the Holy Land for 2 years." That's right. Why is Ling Liusu not back? As the young pavilion master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Ling Liusu had not returned at such a crucial moment. When the crowd heard what Xiao Chen said, they could not help but feel it was strange. Murong Chong, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, "She has already become a core disciple of the Phoenix's Passion Palace. She has already gone to the upper realm. The people of the 3 holy masters cannot come here to snatch luck." When the crowd heard this, they were astonished. At the same time, they felt it was strange how Murong Chong knew. After 6 days of non-stop flying at Mach 3, the golden jade glazed ship finally arrived at the great Jin nation's Dragon Sealing Mountain. They only needed to fly for another half a day to reach the Dragon Sealing Mountain. Jiang Qi and the other 2 elders had already walked out from the deck. They introduced the situation of the great Jin nation to Xiao Chen and the others. At the same time, they gave a simple explanation of the rules of the 5-nation youth competition. The 5-nation youth competition is split into the preliminaries and arena battles. No matter how many participants sign up, there are only 400 slots for the preliminaries. That is to say, only 400 people in the entire Tianwu continent can step onto the wind cloud platform. When Lu Suifeng heard this, he was startled. He said, "So strict? If so many people are eliminated in the first round, won't some of the strong participants be buried?" Jiang Qi smiled and said, "Yes, but such a situation rarely happens. The preliminaries are very simple and fair. You will understand when you get there." The closer the warship got to the Dragon Sealing Mountain, the more warships they met. In the end, they would meet a warship every 100 meters. The warships were so densely packed that they covered the sky. There were at least 10,000 warships and countless flying spirit beasts. The scene was boundlessly vast, shocking everyone. The density of the warships was simply too high. Shen Manjun had no choice but to slow down the golden jade glazed ship and advance slowly. After 4 hours, Jiang Qi pointed to a mountain range in front and said, "That is the Dragon Sealing Mountain." Chapter 560. Xiao Chen and the others quickly looked in the direction that Jiang Qi pointed. They saw hundreds of towering peaks at the limits of their vision. The positioning of the peaks was very strange. They actually formed a huge ring. The boundless clouds in the middle of the ring-shaped mountain range were also different. It was also different from the rest. Compared to the surrounding white clouds, it was clearly much thicker, and its color was also deeper. From a distance, the ring-shaped mountain range and the clouds in the middle looked like a cage, trapping something. There were several tall towers on the peaks of the hundreds of mountains in the surroundings, and from time to time, there would be warships and flying spirit beasts resting on the peaks of the mountains. Xiao Chen felt it was strange. He said, "There are hundreds of peaks here. Which peak is Dragon Sealing Mountain?" Jiang Qi smiled faintly and said, "That is the one in the middle. However, because it was too tall, someone chopped it down long ago. You can't see it now. You will be able to see it when you get to the top of the ring-shaped mountain range." After traveling for 10 minutes, the golden jade glazed ship stopped on one of the peaks in the ring-shaped mountain range. Many warships and huge flying spirit beasts were already parked on the peak. Countless people headed for the tower at the top of the mountain. Jiang Qi led the 6 to follow the crowd and entered one of the towers. The registration for this competition was in the Great Hall. The registration process was rather simple. After checking the age of the 6 people, they registered the names of the sect participants. Then, they each received a dark dragon-shaped jade pendant. "Come, let's go to the top." After going through the circular staircase, the group arrived at the top of the tower with anticipation. The top floor did not have a roof. When the group stood there, they could look down at their surroundings, taking in the scenery for thousands of kilometers around. Many cultivators had already gathered at the top of the tower. Xiao Chen parted the crowd and looked at the mysterious center of the ring-shaped mountain range. What astonished Xiao Chen was that there was actually a large city in the center surrounded by the mountains. It was no smaller than the Shihe province's capital. Looking down from the top of the tower, the buildings in the city looked like ants. Only some strange circular stone pillars were several kilometers tall and looked relatively clear. There were hundreds of stone pillars scattered throughout the city. Some were tall, some were short, but they formed a strange pattern. Every stone pillar had a huge coiling dragon carved on it. If one looked carefully, they would discover that this was a city built on the middle of a mountain. The enormous mountain peak had been chopped off at the waist by someone. Then, on top of it, a magnificent city had been built. Jiang Qi explained to the six, that is Dragon Ceiling City. Below it is the broken Dragon Ceiling Mountain. Do you see those dragon pillars? The first round begins. All the participants on the towers of the 100 peaks of the ring-shaped mountain range will fly towards Dragon Ceiling City at the same time. As long as they can stand on the dragon pillars, they will qualify for the arena battles. The 10 dragon pillars in the middle are obviously much taller. Those who stand on them can obtain the qualifications to become a seeded player. That is also where the competition is the most intense. As for the taller of the 10 pillars, they are dragon pillars. Shihe said. Dragon Chen of Dragon Spirit. Of Chen of the Dragon Pillars, Chen's Spirit Dragon the highest. After Lu Suifeng heard this, he said, so, the first stage is actually so simple. When an old man from another nation heard this, he could not help but smile coldly. He said, ignorant. In every 5-nation youth competition, 1/3 of the participants fall to their deaths. This year, there will be even more. It is not as simple as you think. Jiang Qi followed up and said gravely, that is indeed the case. You have to stand on the dragon pillar for 1 minute before you qualify for the arena battles. You cannot leave after touching it. If you are knocked down before you can even stand for 1 minute, you will have to start all over again. The person who spoke earlier said, in 1 minute, you will have to endure endless attacks from all directions. Even if there aren't 10,000 participants, there are at least 7 or 8,000. You can imagine how bitter it will be when the time comes to compete for the 400 spots. When Lu Suifeng and the others heard this, they could not help but feel nervous. No wonder the first elder said that no one could take advantage of the situation to qualify for the arena battles. 1 minute was only 60 breaths. Normally, this would pass in a flash. However, if one wanted to stand on the dragon pillar for 1 minute and endure attacks from all directions, it would be very difficult. This was because one would not be fighting one-on-one. One would have to endure countless attacks from all directions. If one was not careful, one would fall. Those who could qualify to participate in the 5-nation youth competition were all outstanding youths. Breaking through to Martial King at the age of 24, if they were not outstanding, what were they? However, among these 7 or 8,000 outstanding talents, only 400 true genius cultivators would be left after a round of cleansing. One could easily imagine how demonic the strength and talent of these 400 people were. The quality of the 5-nation youth competition was flabbergasting. Jiang Qi wanted to befriend the person who spoke. He performed a cupped fist salute and said, I am Elder Jiang Qi of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. May I ask for your great name? The person at the side was only about 50 years old. However, he was full of vigor and aura. Clearly, he was a peak half-step martial monarch. When that person heard Jiang Qi's words, he performed a cupped fist salute and said, my great name is not that great. My family name is Du, and my given name is Hui. I am the chief supervisor of the Great Jin Nation's Breaking Saber Sect. Breaking Saber Sect. Jiang Qi thought for a while, but he could not think of any powerful sect in the Great Jin Nation called the Breaking Saber Sect. Du Hui smiled faintly and said, Brother Jiang, there is no need to overthink. The Breaking Saber sect is just a third-rate sect in the Great Jin Nation. How many people have signed up? When he thought about it, it made sense. Although the Great Jin Nation had 10 great sects, there were bound to be some small sects as well. Jiang Qi pointed at Xiao Chen and the others and replied, Not many, only 6. A young disciple behind Du Hui mocked, I have heard of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion as well. It seems to be one of the 3 great sects of the Great Jin Nation. Unexpectedly, they only have 6 people. Our Breaking Saber sect is a third-rate sect, yet we have 10-odd people. That person's tone was very pleased with himself. The pride that was unique to the disciples of the Great Jin Nation was contained in his words, making others feel uncomfortable. The Great Jin Nation had many spirit veins and abundant spiritual energy. It was also vast and boundless. For 10,000 years, it had suppressed the 4 great nations. Jiang Qi's expression turned slightly awkward. He did not expect the other party to be so rude at such a young age. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows slightly and a sharp light flickered in his eyes. He said coldly, No matter how much rotten wood there is, it cannot be carved. To think that a third-rate sect in the Great Jin Nation could be so arrogant. Even an insignificant disciple dares to speak rudely to the older generation. Xiao Chen had finally seen the arrogance of the people of the Great Jin Nation. That young disciple said angrily, What do you mean by that? Are you calling us trash? You are just a disciple of a sect that is ranked at the bottom of the 4 great nations, yet you speak so arrogantly. Don't let me, Song Qing, meet you in the arena battles. Senior brother, don't say that to him. How can he be qualified to enter the arena battles? When the many sect disciples and lone cultivators on the roof saw this scene, they all looked over with interest. Du Hui frowned slightly. He did not want to blow things up. He cupped his fist and said to Jiang Qi, Brother Jiang, this disciple was rash. Sorry. Although Du Hui said that, he did not get Song Qing to apologize. He only led the group of Breaking Saber sect disciples to the other side of the tower. Before leaving, Song Qing looked at Xiao Chen and the others mockingly, looking down on them. Lu Suifeng said angrily, Who are these people? They are just a third-rate sect in the Great Jin Nation. How dare they speak like that? Jiang Qi said helplessly, Never mind, the people of the Great Jin Nation are just like that. If Jiang Qi had known that the old man was from the Great Jin Nation, he would not have had any intention of befriending him. When facing the people of the Great Jin Nation, he naturally had a superior attitude. The first stage of the preliminaries would only begin after everyone had arrived. There were still many sects that had not arrived yet. Everyone could only continue waiting. The matter with the Breaking Saber sect was just a small interlude, it passed very quickly. Time slowly went by. Suddenly, someone in the crowd on the roof exclaimed, The Haotian sect's warship is coming. On the mountain peak, the people on several towers immediately raised their heads and looked over. A warship the size of a golden mountain flew over from the distance. The unique flag of the Haotian sect was on the bow of the warship. It was easy to tell with one glance. Xiao Chen sighed to himself, the charm of the super sects is indeed extraordinary. The moment they appeared, they attracted everyone's attention. I heard that the Haotian sect's Yuchensi has already cultivated the morning sun incantation to the 13th layer. That day, there was a mysterious phenomenon of a rainbow light. Their sect master announced that their goal this time is to get into the top 10. It is not easy to get into the top 10. None of the super sects are easy to deal with. The crowd discussed. Soon, another warship flew over. Someone recognized it and said, The Evil Moon Pavilion's people are here as well. Baijian managed to get into the top 20 in the previous 5 nations selection. I wonder what rank he will get this time. The Drifting Snow Sword sects and the Supreme Palace's warships are here as well. How impressive! The true inheritors of these 2 sects managed to get into the top 10 in the previous 5 nations selection. I wonder if they can hold on to that position this time. The Sun Moon Pavilion's people are here as well. The people of the 10 great sects are all here. The warships of the 10 great sects arrived one by one. They casually found a mountain peak and stopped. Among them, the drifting snow sword sect's warship actually stopped at the mountain peak that Xiao Chen was at. However, the drifting snow sword sect's people chose a different tower. When Xiao Chen looked over, he discovered that the drifting snow sword sect's people had all been asked to leave. Damn it! The drifting snow sword sect's people are really damn tyrannical. The moment they arrived, they chased us all away. The cultivators who were chased down had no choice but to go to the pavilion that Xiao Chen and the others were at and start cursing. Someone smiled coldly and said, "You only dare to curse here. The drifting snow sword sect already has hundreds of participants. If you don't go down, where will the others stand?" Xiao Chen ignored these people's quarrels. He fixed his gaze on a white figure on the tower in front. It was a young man. This young man wore white clothes and had a cold gaze. He stared at the tallest of the hundreds of dragon pillars in Dragon Ceiling City. This young man stood there quietly. Even though he did not move at all, he looked like a lonely sword. As he stood there, his sword intent soared through the clouds, spreading a chill everywhere. When Jiang Qi saw the situation, he said softly, "That is the drifting snow sword sect's first disciple, Lu Xiaoyan. He was ranked 9th in the previous 5-nation youth competition. Back then, he was only 18 years old. Now that a few years have passed, his icy sword intent has become even more terrifying." Chapter 561. The people of the 8 noble clans are here. Just at this moment, someone among the many peaks in the ring-shaped mountain range shouted. Immediately, a clamor resounded throughout the mountain range. The people of the 8 noble clans are finally here. Every time, they dominate the top 8. I wonder if it will be the same this time. I don't think there will be any change. Even the super geniuses of the 10 great sects have given up. Who else can change? That is hard to say. Many of the geniuses participating in this 5-nation youth competition are outstanding talents from the Boundless Sea. I heard that the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Shenyuan Zhantian, is very powerful. He is already an unrivaled half-step martial monarch. A great Gene Nation cultivator said, unconvinced, unrivaled half-step martial monarch. That is only because he has not met the scions of the 8 noble clans yet. Any one of them would be able to defeat him. Furthermore, the Sima clan has already obtained the first rank 3 times in a row. The Sima clan's Sima Lingxian obtained the first rank in the previous 5-nation youth competition. If he can defend his first rank this time, then the Sima clan will have obtained the first rank 4 times in a row. 8 warships lined up in the distance. They were the warships of the Sima clan, the Bai clan, the Li clan, the Qian clan, the Wang clan, the Feng clan, the Nangong clan, and the Baiming clan. The 8 noble clans had many talents and were very strong. Even the 10 great sects could not compare to them. The moment they appeared, the atmosphere in the ring-shaped mountain range reached a climax. Everyone knew that the 8 noble clans had arrived. The first stage was about to begin. Who would obtain the qualifications to ascend to the wind cloud platform would be revealed soon. All participating cultivators, please wear your dragon-shaped jade pendant. I will count down from 10, and the first stage of the preliminaries will officially begin. After 7 or 8 minutes, a resonant voice resounded in Dragon Ceiling City. The voice was infused with quintessence, so the tens of thousands of cultivators in the huge ring-shaped mountain range could hear it clearly. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. As the countdown rang out, the noisy mountain peak immediately became quiet. No one spoke. There was only the sound of the wind and the approaching number. All the cultivators' hearts were in their throats. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The instant the countdown ended, all the participants in the towers of the ring-shaped mountain range, the outstanding talents of the ancient desolate land, the boundless sea, and the 5 great empires all moved at the same time. Shio shio shio. All sorts of sonic booms rang out continuously as they headed for Dragon Ceiling City in the center. As far as the eye could see, there were young cultivators leaping down from all directions. There were more than 10,000 of them. 3 years of waiting, day and night of bitter cultivation. On this day, at this moment, all of the geniuses and outstanding talents under the starry sky began to move. Xiao Chen wasn't in a rush to jump down. He looked calmly at the excited expressions on the faces of the various outstanding talents. At this moment, his heart was as calm as still water. The thick dark clouds above Dragon Sealing City churned continuously as the auras of countless young disciples stirred them up. A strong wind blew, and dark clouds rolled. Vaguely, a resonant dragon roar resounded from within the heavy dark clouds. The dragon roar resounded throughout the world, shaking the ancients and the present. The cultivators in the spectator stands all felt a great aura bearing down on them. The clouds churned and spat out a great aura. An ancient and dignified aura spread out in the mountain range, freezing the air. Pooh! Suddenly, a small piece of the boundless dark clouds shattered. A dazzling golden light tore through the air and descended. Dragon Sealing City was dark all year round, the sun could not be seen. The thick dark clouds had not scattered for thousands of years. However, at this moment, a golden light actually descended. Someone in the crowd immediately exclaimed, "That is the golden light from the upper realm's Kunlun realm. It is the light of divinity." The previous five-nation youth competition did not have such a scene. It is indeed the light of divinity. In the previous age of geniuses, there was such a mysterious phenomenon. It looks like this is indeed the age of geniuses. The vast auras of tens of thousands of geniuses attracted the attention of the upper realm. According to rumor, the one who ranks highly in this five-nation youth competition will have a chance to enter the upper realm as a martial monarch. Now that I think about it, it is true. The intense battles on the 400 dragon pillars had already started. 30 to 40 geniuses fought over each dragon pillar. The scene was incredibly miserable. For the sake of the 400 spots, everyone had done their best. Everyone knew what this five-nation youth competition meant. If they missed this opportunity, they would not be able to make it. If they missed this opportunity, they would forever be a supporting character in this great age of cultivators. The 10 tallest dragon pillars in the middle were currently very calm. Not many people fought over them. Everyone knew what these 10 dragon pillars meant. The most intense battles would take place there. Without strong strength, if one tried to fight for them, they would instantly lose their qualification for the preliminaries. The 8 noble clans' towers had 8 noble scions standing on the roof. The 8 of them chatted cheerfully, appearing very calm. To everyone, obtaining 400 spots would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. However, these 8 people did not care about it at all, they were not worried at all. Hee hee. Brothers, Qian Wen, will take my leave first. You guys continue chatting. Among the 8 noble scions, a man wearing gorgeous robes of alternating blue and white smiled gently and performed a cupped fist salute before leaving. Xiao. It was unknown whether it was a coincidence or not, but after he left, another hole appeared in the thick dark clouds above. A dazzling golden light descended from the sky like a sharp sword. Soon, only 2 of the 8 noble scions remained. They were the Bai clans Bai Qi and the Sima clan Sima Lingxian. These 2 were the champions of the previous five-nation youth competition. Every time a noble scion leaped down, a resplendent golden light would descend from the sky. Those who paid attention would be astonished when they saw it. Sima Lingxian was very tall and slender. His eyebrows were extremely sharp, and his eyes were as resplendent as the stars. His face was very handsome, it looked like he was carved by the gods. There was a kind of person in the world who was born extraordinary. Even in the vast sea of people, one look would be able to separate him from the rest of the world. Without a doubt, Sima Lingxian was such a person. Just by standing there, he gave off a strong aura. Everyone could not help but feel a pressure in their hearts. Bai Qi took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. Then, he stood before the railing and prepared to leap down. Sima Lingxian turned his body slightly and looked at Bai Qi. He nodded and said, "Bai Qi, I heard that you completely practiced the most difficult four-season saber technique of your Bai clan. In the past 3,000 years, you are the first cultivator under the age of 30 in the Bai clan to practice this saber technique to great perfection. Bai Qi did not deny it. He smiled gently and said, "What's wrong? Are you afraid? You must be joking." Sima Lingxian laughed loudly and said, "Bai Qi, I just hope that you will not lose as badly as you did 3 years ago. It would be good if you could give me some pressure." After Sima Lingxian spoke, he laughed loudly and leaped onto the railing. He stared at the tallest of the 400 dragon pillars, and a strong aura spread out from his body. Who? Who? A strong wind immediately blew from the distance, making Sima Lingxian's robes flutter. When his aura reached its peak, Sima Lingxian pushed off the railing heavily and flew towards the tallest dragon pillar. Pooh! 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 8 beams of golden light shot down from 10 kilometers above. The golden lights were very dazzling and beautiful. They encased Sima Lingxian and moved with him in the air. Damn! Divine light enveloping him. How strong is Sima Lingxian exactly? Such a strange mysterious phenomenon attracted the gazes of all the cultivators in the surrounding mountains. Bai Qi clenched his right fist tightly. His expression was somewhat unsightly. 3 years ago, although he was ranked second, he did not last more than 10 moves against Sima Lingxian. He had allowed Sima Lingxian to climb to the top without any pressure. Sima Lingxian, the 4-season saber technique is not as simple as you think. This time, Bai Qi will definitely take back the glory that belongs to me. Bai Qi gently pushed off the ground and his figure floated up. Unexpectedly, his target was the tallest dragon pillar as well. 4 beams of golden light descended from the sky. However, they did not move with Bai Qi. There was a gap between them and Sima Lingxian. The competition lasted for 5 or 6 minutes, but no one managed to climb the dragon pillar. Amid the saber lights and sword images, several cultivators fell down, injured. Miserable cries rang out. If one was unlucky and suffered a sneak attack from too many people, they would die. Xiao Chen swept his gaze through the crowd. He had a rough idea of how to obtain a spot. His gaze fixed on the outermost dragon pillar. Xiao! Xiao Chen pushed off the ground heavily and shot forward like an arrow leaving a bow. 8 small holes appeared in the dark clouds in the sky. Just as the 8 beams of golden light were about to land, for some reason, the small holes instantly closed up with a "shoo" sound. Of course, no one noticed this small detail. Far away from the most intense competition in the center, Xiao Chen headed for the most unremarkable dragon pillar at the periphery. Even so, there were still 30 people fighting over this dragon pillar. The battles around the dragon pillar were exceptionally intense. The dragon pillar was empty, but no one dared to stand on it. Earlier, when a few people tried to stand on it, they were targeted. That miserable state was not too long ago. Shoo! Just as the 30 people fought, a figure suddenly appeared on the dragon pillar. That person was dressed in white and had a slender saber at his waist. He had a calm expression without any fluctuations. Where did this brat come from? How dare he snatch our spot? How reckless! Beat him up! When the 30 people saw Xiao Chen stand on the dragon pillar, they stopped fighting without saying a word. Then, they launched all sorts of attacks at Xiao Chen from all directions. The weakest of the people attacking were martial kings. There were many peak superior grade martial kings. 1 or 2 of them were even half-step martial monarchs. Coincidentally, the first to attack was the half-step martial monarch Song Qing of the Breaking Saber Gate. When he saw Xiao Chen standing on the dragon pillar, he smiled coldly to himself. This brat is just a sect disciple of the great Qin nation. Does he think that anyone can stand on this dragon pillar? Even Song Qing was not in a rush to stand on it. It was not easy to face everyone's attacks for a minute. He had to wait until everyone's essence was exhausted before he was confident of standing on it for a minute. Chapter 562. Bang! All sorts of lights landed on the white figure. Light exploded, and in the midst of chaos, the figure was directly blown to pieces. Is he dead? Everyone felt it was strange. They felt that this was easier. However, when they looked carefully, they discovered that he had indeed died without a complete corpse. Only then did they relax. Someone laughed loudly and said, "He can't even block one move, and he dares to join in the fun. He is truly reckless." Is that so? Just at this moment, a deep, cold laugh came from behind the crowd. Everyone turned their heads to look. They saw the figure that they had just killed. He was dressed in white robes and had a saber hanging at his waist. He had a calm expression as he reappeared. Wukue breaks the heavens. Xiao Chen could not be bothered with this group of people. He directly executed the lightning tribulation saber technique. He drew his saber and a resplendent pillar of light elongated. The cultivators who had just turned their heads thought that they had blasted Xiao Chen into pieces. Suddenly, they encountered such an intense attack and were caught off guard. The 10-odd people in a straight line immediately had their protective essence shattered by the pillar of light, causing them to fall. Several of the younger cultivators with weaker cultivations vomited large mouthfuls of blood and cried out miserably as they fell from the sky. The dragon pillar was more than 2 kilometers tall. If one did not circulate their essence and fell from such a height, even if they did not die, they would be severely injured. Xiao Chen managed to defeat most of the group of 30 people. He only used a small trick, the life bestowal spell. This saved Xiao Chen a lot of effort. He could use less essence and did not have to bring out all his trump cards. A look of horror flashed in the eyes of Song Qing, who was hiding in the crowd. He had not expected Xiao Chen to be so strong. The Great Qin nation was the weakest of the 5 great nations. Furthermore, this fellow came from a small sect. Song Qing originally thought that he was just an ordinary genius. However, when Xiao Chen attacked, he instantly knocked down 10-odd people. With Song Qing's insight, he immediately understood what was going on. Xiao Chen was not as simple as Song Qing thought. Xiao Chen's strength was equal to his, perhaps even slightly stronger. No, I absolutely cannot let this brat participate in the arena battles. A ruthless look flashed in Song Qing's eyes as he hid in the crowd. Everyone, let's attack together. We can't let this kid snatch away our spots. This guy is too despicable. He actually launched a sneak attack on us. He shouted loudly, but Song Qing kept retreating. He didn't intend to take the lead at all. Kill! There were very few spots, and none of them wanted to give up. Even though they knew that Xiao Chen was stronger than any of them, they wouldn't give up so easily. Xiao Chen glanced coldly at Song Qing, who had hidden far away. Then, he ignored him and focused on the group of genius cultivators before him. Those who came to participate in the competition were all cultivators with outstanding talent. They were not martial kings who cultivated trashy cultivation techniques. They all had their own trump cards. Wanting to deal with 10-odd peak martial kings in one go was clearly not a wise thing to do. Xiao Chen swept his gaze around and locked on to the 3 strongest people. He had to establish his might in order to completely intimidate this group of people. Blue Dragon Tail Whip. Xiao Chen shouted, and his figure moved in a strange arc in midair. It was like a huge true dragon's tail swung gently. A boundless strong wind blew as he pierced through the dense crowd. Suddenly, Xiao Chen's clear eyes turned scarlet. A boundless killing intent surged out. The peak superior grade martial king Xiao Chen locked on to immediately felt the pressure on him increase. Massacre, hatred, rage, and all sorts of negative emotions erupted in his mind. His movements immediately slowed. By the time he reacted, he discovered that Xiao Chen's pitch-black saber was already before his neck. His eyes immediately revealed an expression of extreme horror. Xiao Chen flipped his palm, and his saber turned into the back of the saber. Then, he chopped at the other party's neck. If Xiao Chen was not an enemy, there was no need to kill him. Offending the sect behind him was not a good thing either. The strongest of the 3 martial kings managed to survive. However, he cried out miserably as the essence on the back of the saber knocked him to the ground. Although all this took a long time to describe, from the moment Xiao Qin used the blue dragon tail whip to the moment the other party fell, only a moment had passed. It was so fast that no one could keep up with Xiao Chen's rhythm. Several of the cultivators in front were still moving forward due to inertia. Xiao Chen looked around and fixed his gaze on the second peak martial king. Then, he used Wukue shakes the heavens and a purple divine Wukue tree descended from the sky. Due to the difference in strength, that martial king could only resist for a few breaths of time before the divine Wukue tree suppressed him and sent him crashing into Dragon Ceiling City. Only now did everyone react. There were many attacks of different colors and all sorts of states. Saber chi, sword chi, and spear chi flew in all directions, there were countless of them. Even with Xiao Chen's strength, if he received these attacks head-on, he would suffer significant internal injuries. His figure trembled slightly as he executed the roaming dragon's 9 transformations and turned into 9 figures. Bang! 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 As the shock waves exploded, several clones were blasted into nothingness. However, Xiao Chen's main body took advantage of the chaos to arrive beside the third peak martial king. This time, Xiao Chen did not use any techniques. He clashed with that person with his saber. When the weapons clashed, a surging essence exploded out. The huge difference in strength caused the other party's weapon to shatter into countless pieces. His palm split open and blood leaked out of the corner of his lips. Xiao Chen defeated 3 people in 3 moves. Furthermore, he was clearly the strongest person among them. The others immediately stopped what they were doing and carefully took a few steps back. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and said calmly to the crowd, "Go somewhere else. This dragon pillar is mine." Xiao Chen's calm tone left no room for doubt. Furthermore, he displayed great strength. His image of Xiao Chen immediately became unfathomable in their minds. Hu Qi. Just at this moment, a superior grade martial king suddenly launched a sneak attack. While Xiao Chen was speaking, this superior grade martial king silently attacked from behind. This superior grade martial king's concealment was on point. As he moved quickly, there was no sound of wind. He did not leak any killing chi. This was a perfect sneak attack. Unfortunately, this superior grade martial king met Xiao Chen, a cultivator that could not be judged by common sense. Breaking armor. Seizing the heart. It was like Xiao Chen had eyes at the back of his head. He quickly turned around and executed the final 2 moves of the Dragon Claw Fist in an instant. The breaking armor fist broke through the other party's protective essence. The seizing the heart pierced through the other party's chest at lightning speed. In an instant, the person who was alive a moment ago turned into a corpse in the blink of an eye and fell to the ground. Let's go. We can't stay here any longer. When the others saw the situation, they were completely frightened. They no longer had any wishful thinking, and they all scattered. As for Song Qing, he had already fled far away when he saw that the situation was not good. Xiao Chen could not be bothered with this person. If Song Qing obtained one of the 400 spots, he would have a chance to meet him in the arena battles. If Song Qing could not even qualify, then there was no need to care about him. The world turned quiet. Xiao Chen stood on the dragon pillar calmly. This time, he was truly standing on it. How long was 1 minute? It was only 60 breaths. If no one disturbed him, it would pass very quickly. 10, 9, 8, 7, Xiao Chen counted the time in his heart. By the time the others saw the mysterious phenomenon, it was already too late. 1 minute had finally passed. Huang Dang! Huang Dang! The 1-kilometer-long dragon pillar under Xiao Chen's feet shook violently. The dragon carvings around the stone pillar instantly came to life. Boom! The spiraling stone dragon roared ferociously. Every scale on its body gave off a golden light. Finally, it soared into the sky and into the clouds. The dragon roared and reverberated throughout the valley. The huge dragon tore through the thick dark clouds and flew into the mysterious distance. A golden pillar of light descended from the distant sky, encasing Xiao Chen on the stone pillar. Someone succeeded. Who is it? Which one of the 8 noble clans? Or is it a disciple of one of the 10 great sects? Who is this person? How come I have never heard of him before? He looks unfamiliar. Could this be his first time participating in the 5-nation youth competition? That can't be. Unexpectedly, a newcomer obtained the top spot. Xiao Chen, who was enveloped in the light, immediately attracted the gazes of the tens of thousands of people in the tower. Everyone was very surprised. First elder, Xiao Chen succeeded. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's second elder said excitedly, revealing a joyful expression. Jiang Qi appeared rather calm. He smiled faintly and said, "Quantity is not important. As long as it is the essence, that is enough." When the breaking saber gates Du Hui heard these words, he felt very uncomfortable. Earlier, his disciple had mocked Xiao Chen for being a country bumpkin who came from a small place. However, Xiao Chen's disciple was the first to qualify. As for Song Qing, he had been scared off by Xiao Chen, not even having the courage to fight. The golden pillar of light lasted for a full minute before it slowly descended. The instant the light scattered, the smooth stone pillar shrank back into the ground with a "shio" sound. The 2-kilometer-tall pillar descended into the ground in a second. This made Xiao Chen feel like he was on an elevator in an amusement park in his previous life. As far as the eye could see, the surrounding buildings were lined up neatly. It seemed like they followed some sort of pattern. The buildings in Dragon Ceiling City gave off an ancient and grand feeling. A heavy and ancient aura washed over Xiao Chen. The weight of history was evident here. Xiao Chen picked up the dragon-shaped jade pendant hanging at his waist and looked at it. The originally dim jade pendant was now filled with vibrant colors. There was a tiny golden dragon in the translucent jade pendant. It swam around slowly, looking very interesting. Pooh! Pooh! A cool breeze suddenly blew over, brushing aside the hair in front of Xiao Chen's forehead, which was covered by a blue strip of cloth, revealing his delicate and handsome face. When Xiao Chen looked up, he saw a middle-aged man in yellow robes silently approaching. The cool breeze came from this person. Xiao Chen was mildly startled. If it were not for that cool breeze, he would not have sensed this person's arrival. That was to say, this person could kill him silently as easily as flipping his hand. That cool breeze was probably purposely sent out by this person. Xiao Chen did not dare to be disrespectful to someone of such cultivation. He performed a cupped fist salute and asked, "May I know who senior is?" Chapter 563. The yellow-robed middle-aged man glanced at the dragon-shaped jade pendant at Xiao Chen's waist. He smiled faintly and said, "I am the organizer of the 5-nation youth competition. What is your name? Do you have a sect?" So, he is the organizer of the 5-nation youth competition. No wonder he has such a high cultivation. Xiao Chen nodded and said, "I am Xiao Chen from the Great Qin Nation's Heavenly Saber Pavilion." The yellow-robed middle-aged man thought for a while before saying, "Come with me. I will bring you to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's residence. The arena battles will start in 3 days. You can rest there for the next few days. If you have nothing to do, you can walk around the city." The two of them moved very fast. They leaped over many tall buildings. In a few breaths of time, they arrived at an independent courtyard. There were only a few small rooms in the courtyard. It looked very simple. Although it was simple, it could be described as crude. The yellow-robed middle-aged man explained, "The style of the courtyard is based on the strength of the sect and the performance of the sect disciples in the 5-nation youth competition. If there are no objections, I will take my leave first." Xiao Chen expressed his understanding. In the entire continent, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was not considered a big sect. In the past, they did not have any outstanding disciples. However, in this 5-nation youth competition, Xiao Chen would definitely change this situation. He would not let the descendants of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion live in such a wretched place. Being the first to qualify for the next round had a lot to do with Xiao Chen's choice. People with his strength would have all gone to fight for the seated spot. The inheritors of the 10 great sects, the heirs of the 8 noble clans, and the top sects of the 4 nations surrounded the 10 tallest dragon pillars. The heavenly sword gates Ding Fengqiu, the beast-taming abode Suimo, the myriad fiend palaces Mu Xinya, Chumu, and the 1,000-sword pavilions Xia Xian were all carefully testing the waters. It was impossible for them to fight to the death with each other in advance. They could only test each other out. Hence, they were even more cautious. They could not decide who would stand on top in a short period of time. The arena battles had 2 elimination rounds. Each round required 20 matches, eliminating 100 people. Only after the 2 elimination rounds could one qualify for the finals. The seeded spot did not need to participate in the first elimination round and could directly enter the second round. This was equivalent to having 20 fewer matches. Naturally, such an advantage made people jealous. The top-seeded contestant had even more benefits. He could skip 2 elimination rounds and directly enter the finals. Apart from that, the seeded player was also a fight for reputation. Simply put, it was a fight for face. Xiao Chen had his own ideas. In his opinion, as long as he handled it well, he wouldn't have to reveal his true strength in the first 20 battles. Moreover, seeded players were more likely to be in the eye of the storm and become the target of others' research. Keeping a low profile would always bring unexpected benefits. The one who had the last laugh would be the real winner. Xiao Chen did not rush into his room to rest. Instead, he leaped onto the roof and sat down to watch the fight for the first seed. Sima Lingxian was the most outstanding genius of the Sima clan in the past few thousand years. He was the undisputed champion of the previous 5-nation youth competition. Xiao Chen was also very curious about what kind of person he was. Surrounded by the 8 beams of golden light, Sima Lingxian arrived before the tallest and largest dragon pillar without any fear. His gaze was fiery and strong self-confidence filled his eyes. It was like the tallest dragon pillar already belonged to him. Aside from him, no one else could stand on it. The first seed was him, Sima Lingxian. This kind of strong self-confidence, coupled with his own strength, made his aura seem extremely terrifying. Regular cultivators would automatically feel inferior with just one glance. If they fought with him, they would lose before they even started. Xiao Chen muttered, "What strong self-confidence. This is an unshakable confidence in his own strength. This confidence makes him stronger, and his strength makes him even more confident. With the two complementing each other, it forms a unique aura." Sima Lingxian was indeed not simple. However, once his self-confidence suffered a blow, he would fall to rock bottom. It would be hard for him to climb back up. This was the principle of being too firm and easy to break. One could be confident, but one could not be blindly confident. Of the 3,000 great realms, the Tianwu continent and the Sky Dome realm were just ordinary great realms. The other great realms definitely had stronger geniuses. While one was confident, one had to remember to keep a low profile. Only when one truly stood at the peak could one look down on others. This was Xiao Chen's point of view. It was also the way he conducted himself. Hence, he did not fight for the first seed title, there was no need for it. Suddenly, Xiao Chen exclaimed softly. He smiled faintly and said, "Someone wants to fight with Sima Lingxian for the first seed. Now, we can see how strong you are." High in the sky, Sima Lingxian looked at Bai Qi, who was opposite the dragon pillar. He smiled gently and said, "Bai Qi, do you want to taste defeat now? The arena battles have not started yet. If your mental state is not stable, it will affect your strength." Feeling the absolute confidence in Sima Lingxian's words, Bai Qi said calmly, "If I retreat without a fight, my mental state will truly suffer a blow. If I can relax, so what if I lose?" In the previous 5-nation youth competition, Bai Qi was the undisputed second rank. He was also a rare genius of the Bai noble clan. Look, Bai Qi and Sima Lingxian are fighting. He lost miserably 3 years ago. I wonder if Bai Qi can turn the tables. I heard that Bai Qi practiced the Bai clan's most difficult four-season saber technique to great perfection. Now, his strength has increased explosively. I heard that the Bai clan's ancestor obtained the four-season saber technique from a nameless ancient grave. After he found it, no one could understand it. It was only after the Bai clan's genius, Bai Shueha, comprehended it that he pointed out a path for the later generations. That is indeed the case. The four-season saber technique is incredibly strong. It can be said to be the strongest martial technique under heaven-ranked martial techniques. Even though Bai Shueha pointed out a path, no one has ever heard of anyone being able to understand Bai Shueha's meaning before the age of 30. Who knows, Bai Qi might really be able to use this four-season saber technique to wash away his humiliation. The tens of thousands of cultivators in the ring-shaped mountain range immediately felt excited. After 3 years, this scene reappeared. These two were undoubtedly going to fight a fierce battle. If they really fought, it would be very exciting. Sima Lingxian looked at Bai Qi and smiled. It is said that the saber intent of a bladesman is stronger than the sword intent of a swordsman before advancing to martial sage. Bai Qi, I will not take advantage of the difference in our cultivations. If your saber intent can defeat my sword intent, I will let you have the first seed. The moment Sima Lingxian said this, everyone was dumbfounded. Saber intent was very difficult to form, at least 10 times harder than sword intent. However, once saber intent was formed, its might would definitely be stronger than sword intent of the same level. As long as one advanced to martial sage, one's sword intent and saber intent would have their own souls. Bai Qi's black pupils constricted slightly. He asked, "Are you serious?" A strong self-confidence flickered on Sima Lingxuan's handsome face. He laughed loudly and said, "Of course, I am serious. Since I want to defeat you, I will make you accept your defeat wholeheartedly. I will defeat you in what you are most proud of. Otherwise, what would be the point?" Arrogant. Bai Qi was truly enraged. Although he was not as strong as Sima Lingxian, he did not feel that they were far apart. However, Sima Lingxian was overbearing. Since ancient times, there had been a conclusion about saber intent and sword intent. Saber intent was hard to form and practice. However, its might was definitely stronger than sword intent. However, Sima Lingxian was so arrogant today. He only used sword intent to compete with saber intent. He truly did not care about Bai Qi at all. Xiao Chen, who was on the roof of Dragon Ceiling City, felt it was strange as well. The strength of saber intent was a publicly acknowledged fact. Back then, when the bloody bladesman Sun Guangquan advanced to martial monarch, he was able to beat up a small perfection inferior grade martial monarch Northern Sea Alliance elder to the point where he could not retaliate. This was because of saber intent. Small perfection saber intent could increase a cultivator's offensive power by 30%. When one advanced to martial monarch, the base number increased. The 30% increase became even more horrifying. Saber intent was sufficient for a bladesman to have the ability to challenge those of higher cultivation realms. Xiao Chen was a bladesman himself. He had a deep understanding of this. He muttered to himself, "Is this fellow really arrogant, or does he really have an unrivaled strength?" Bai Qi drew his saber in rage. A surging saber intent immediately surged out, and the long saber blade hummed endlessly. Combined with Bai Qi's strong strength, when the saber intent spread out, the sabers of all the bladesmen in the ring-shaped mountain range trembled slightly. A pure saber intent shot out from the tip of the saber, turning into a sharp, formless shockwave as it shot toward Sima Lingxian. The sharp, formless shockwave represented Bai Qi's rage, his pride, and many other things. With hatred in his heart, there was no point in saying anything. "I'll let this strong saber intent settle everything, prove that I, Bai Qi, am not as weak as Sima Lingxian made me out to be." Above the ring-shaped mountain range, the many cultivators could feel the strength of the saber intent in the distance. They all praised it in soft voices. The bladesmen among the cultivators felt it the most. When they looked at this saber, their hearts filled with respect and anticipation. The world came with the sword before the saber. Although the strength of a bladesman or swordsman depended on the individual's performance, due to historical reasons, the status of a bladesman was always lower than that of a swordsman. This could be seen from the number of bladesmen and swordsmen on the continent. Furthermore, a truly unrivaled bladesman had not appeared for many years already. Most of the experts in the world cultivated the sword. The famous Thunder King from 1,000 years ago also cultivated the sword. Now, the strongest genius, Sima Lingxian, also cultivated the sword. The saber had been silent for too long. Now, the great Jin nations Bai Qi could be considered the most famous bladesman of the younger generation. When Bai Qi swung his saber at Sima Lingxian, he carried the hopes of these bladesmen. They hoped that a true bladesman would become unrivaled in the world again. Xiao Chen, who was on the roof, nodded and said softly, based on the range of the saber intent, it should have reached small perfection. Let's see how Sima Lingxian deals with this. Sima Lingxuan's handsome face did not show much surprise. He smiled and said, "You just touched the threshold of saber intent a year ago. In such a short time, you have already reached small perfection. Not bad. Unfortunately, your opponent is me, Sima Lingxian." A strong self-confidence spread out from Sima Lingxuan's body. That self-confidence seemed to condense into an aura. The wind in the air could not withstand this aura. It flowed wildly, kicking up a strong wind. This caused Sima Lingxuan's clothes and hair to flutter continuously. Chapter 564. Above the vast dragon's sealing city, all the geniuses under the starry heavens seemed to be dwarfed by this confidence. Countless stars flickered in the night sky. He was silently telling everyone that he, Sima Lingxian, was the most resplendent star. When Sima Lingxian drew his sword, it gave off a sharp light. The strong wind that blew immediately surrounded the sword. The strong and surging sword intent slowly rose. Soon, it reached small perfection. Then, it continued to climb to 40% comprehension. Just when everyone thought that this was the end, the sword intent continued to rise. 50% comprehension, 60% comprehension. Sima Lingxuan's sword intent had actually reached 60% comprehension. Another 10% would be the true great perfection sword intent. That was a level that several seniors of the sword Dao could not reach. A solid and sharp energy surged out from the tip of Sima Lingxuan's sword intent. In an instant, it broke the formless energy formed by Bai Qi's saber intent. Pu Ci. After breaking the saber intent, Sima Lingxuan's sword intent dimmed slightly. However, its form was scattered, but its intent remained, its sharpness did not diminish. Ka Xie. Just as the sword intent was about to strike Bai Qi, Sima Lingxian sheathed his sword. The sharp sword intent instantly scattered. The sword intent turned into a formless sword wind and spread wildly in all directions. A few unlucky cultivators were struck by this sword wind and immediately suffered minor injuries. The many cultivators on the top of the thousands of towers in the surrounding mountain ranges were silent, not a single sound could be heard. They had expected Sima Lingxian to be strong. However, they had not expected him to be this strong. Unexpectedly, he could crush his opponent's saber intent within the same generation. A small perfection saber intent was equivalent to a 30% comprehended saber intent. However, Sima Lingxian comprehended his sword intent to 60% comprehended, twice as strong as his opponent. Although Bai Qi's saber intent was strong, it was a tragedy for him to run into Sima Lingxian. 60% comprehended sword intent. Bai Qi did not lose unjustly. Sima Lingxian is indeed Sima Lingxian. The title of the top genius is indeed not an exaggeration. The top seed is definitely him. He is confident and talented. Furthermore, he has the support of a noble clan. His future is destined to be extraordinary. I reckon the Sima family is going to win 4 consecutive championships. If this continues for a long time, I'm afraid they will eventually become the strongest family in the world. The many cultivators in the mountain range all sighed as they looked at Sima Lingxian, who was enveloped by the 8 beams of golden light. They were not stingy with their praises. At the very edge of the 400 dragon pillars, the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Shenyuan Zhantian, looked at Sima Lingxian, who had used his sword intent to defeat Bai Qi. He revealed a faint smile and said softly, "Interesting. This five-nation youth competition is indeed the right choice. It is much better than the elite competition in the Boundless Sea. I finally found a place where I can bring out my strength. Everyone says that Bai Qi did not lose unjustly. However, I feel that he lost unjustly. Ha ha. Not only is this Sima Lingxian strong, but his schemes are also terrifying." While Shenyuan Zhantian was in a daze, the other competitors who were also fighting for this dragon pillar all smiled sinisterly. "Fool, to think you are still in a daze at this moment." He brandished his weapon and sent a sharp attack at Shenyuan Zhantian. Bang! Shenyuan Zhantian recovered his wits and smiled faintly. He casually swung his heavenly war halberd, and an azure flood dragon circled around the halberd before exploding. The weapons of the competitors who sneak attacked Shenyuan Zhantian all flew out. Hee hee. The game is over. Little friends, I have no time to play with you. Shenyuan Zhantian smiled coldly. Before everyone's shocked gazes, he swept his heavenly war halberd everywhere. A strong dragon-shaped shockwave burst out. The crowd could not even block one move and fell. Behind the central dragon pillar, Bai Qi had an extremely stunned expression on his face. After a while, he suddenly reacted and said angrily, "Sima Lingxian, you did that on purpose?" Sima Lingxian laughed loudly and said without any fear, "That's right. I did that on purpose. If you admit defeat, you can go." Bai Qi was not satisfied in his heart. He could only endure the bitterness in his heart. However, he could only leave helplessly to fight for the other 9 seated spots. The two's exchange confused others. However, Xiao Chen, who was on the roof, understood what was going on. Sima Lingxian had set this up from the very start. He knew how powerful the 4-season saber technique was and that Bai Qi was not the Bai Qi from 3 years ago. Sima Lingxian would not be able to obtain an easy victory. Hence, he purposely competed in saber intent. Normal people would know that saber intent was stronger than sword intent. However, Sima Lingxian still wanted to compete. There had to be a reason behind it. However, the situation forced him to. Sima Lingxian had said those words before everyone. Even if Bai Qi knew it was inappropriate, he had no choice but to brace himself. Furthermore, Bai Qi felt that his saber intent might not necessarily be weaker than his opponent's sword intent. Hence, he dove in. Thus, everyone saw Sima Lingxian easily defeat Bai Qi. This made Sima Lingxian's confidence even stronger. However, in the end, this was just an open scheme and not a hidden one. Sima Lingxian had indeed relied on his own strength to defeat Bai Qi. No matter how sullen Bai Qi felt, he had still lost this battle. The layman watched for the excitement, while the expert watched for the artistry. From Sima Lingxian's display, Xiao Chen had a rough understanding of his strength. Sima Lingxian's sword intent was very strong. However, when he withdrew his sword, he did not control the sword intent flying around. Xiao Chen could clearly feel that Sima Lingxian had wanted to control him at that time. If he did not, the sword wind flying around would be even stronger, more than enough to kill the cultivator struck by it. The sword intent that he can control perfectly should only be 50% comprehended. Forcefully raising it to 60% is already his limit. Xiao Chen thought to himself, Sima Lingxian is very strong. However, he is not so strong that he is undefeatable. The strongest thing about him is that horrifying, heaven-defying confidence in his heart. While Sima Lingxian and Bai Qi fought, the fights for the other dragon pillars did not stop. However, the spectators focused their attention on the two of them. At this moment, the fights for the dragon pillars in several places had already concluded. Several people stood firmly on the dragon pillars. Their expressions were either excited or calm as they waited for the golden dragon to soar. Great waves washed away the sand. Under this starry sky, the true elite geniuses would appear one by one. Rumble. Rumble. As 1 minute slowly passed, the huge dragons circling the stone pillars under these people started to struggle. They looked like they would soar into the sky at any moment. However, just as the huge dragons were about to soar into the sky, they suddenly stopped moving. It was like time had frozen. The huge dragon sculptures that came to life were all motionless. It was like something shocking was about to appear, so they did not dare to be presumptuous. The participants who qualified could not help but show startled expressions. They quickly looked towards the center of the plaza. They saw Sima Lingxian standing calmly on the tallest and largest dragon pillar. The huge dragon scales circling the stone pillar immediately turned golden. Then, they turned into a golden dragon soaring into the sky. A great dragon is indeed a great dragon. The great dragon has not moved yet. How can the little dragon move first? Some of the cultivators who had watched the previous 5-nation youth competitions laughed gently. There was no surprise on Xiao Chen's face. It had always been like this in the past. As long as someone stood on the dragon pillar in the middle, they would not be able to do so. Even if a participant stood on the other dragon pillars, the huge dragons circling the stone pillars would not be able to fly. This was because the dragon in the middle was a true great dragon, the king of dragons. Once the king appeared, the other huge dragons had to retreat. Sima Lingxian, who was encased in the golden light, looked at the dumbfounded people around him. His lips curled up in a smile, and the confidence in his heart grew even stronger. 3 years ago, he, Sima Lingxian, stood here proudly as well. No one was a match for him. 3 years later, when the age of geniuses arrived, he, Sima Lingxian, was still standing here. He wanted to prove that even in this age of geniuses, he, Sima Lingxian, could still stand at the peak, becoming the main character of this age. He wanted to bring the luck of the Sky Dome realm to the Kunlun realm and meet the geniuses of the other great realms. Then, he would trample on his opponents one by one. Only he, Sima Lingxian, was the main character. Only he, Sima Lingxian, was worthy of standing here. Only he, Sima Lingxian, was qualified to obtain the luck of the Sky Dome realm, to compete with the heavens. Roar! 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 Just as Sima Lingxuan's strong confidence spread into the sky above Dragon's Ceiling City, a boundless strong wind blew, a resonant dragon roar suddenly came from the 400 dragon pillars. That dragon roar resounded everywhere. As the sound waves spread out, they scattered the strong wind that Sima Lingxuan's aura gathered. A huge golden dragon soared into the sky. Although that golden dragon was smaller than Sima Lingxuan's golden dragon, its aura clashed with Sima Lingxuan's, not giving way at all. The golden dragon clashed with the other party's king's aura and soared into the clouds. Xianyuan Zhantian stood on the stone pillar, wearing purple flood dragon robes and a purple cloak on his back. He held a halberd in his hand. When Xianyuan Zhantian saw Sima Lingxian looking at him in shock, he revealed a flirtatious expression on his unruly face. He did not show any fear just because Sima Lingxian had just defeated Bai Qi. The golden dragon above Xianyuan Zhantian chased relentlessly and caught up to the huge dragon's speed. Then, they advanced side by side, tearing through the thick dark clouds. What's going on? Unexpectedly, there is a little dragon that dares to compete with the big dragon. What's going on? Such a situation has never happened in Dragon's Ceiling City before. Unexpectedly, a little dragon does not fear the king dragon at all. In the ring-shaped mountain range, among the towering peaks, the calm cultivators on the towers all had panicked expressions at this moment. That's impossible. It is impossible for such a situation to happen. The king dragon is a true dragon. How could the other little dragons dare to compete with it at this moment? A Sima clan elder shouted. Sima Lingxian was the hope of their Sima clan to become the #1 noble clan in the world. They had to obtain great luck in this great age. The Sima clan could not allow any accidents to happen. At this moment, they were the most nervous. Just as everyone was exclaiming that this was impossible, a rather old man snorted coldly, "What is impossible about it? Naturally, it is a true dragon that can compete with a great dragon." It is just two dragons fighting. In the past, Dragon Sealing City has seen the magnificent feat of 9 dragons competing with each other. Chapter 565. Someone recognized Shenyuan Zhantian and said, "That is the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Shenyuan Zhantian, the top genius of the boundless sea." Indeed, a true dragon can shine wherever it goes. Even in the Tianwu continent, its sharpness is still unstoppable. When faced with Shenyuan Zhantian's mockery, Shenyuan Zhantian quickly recovered his calm. His strong self-confidence did not put any pressure on him, he was just slightly surprised. "Shenyuan Zhantian, I have heard of your great name for a long time. You truly live up to your reputation as the Eastern Sea's little dragon king. However, there can only be one true dragon in this great era. I will personally slay the dragon in the arena battles." Shenyuan Zhantian withdrew his aura and laughed loudly. "I'm afraid that you will fail to slay the dragon and end up in the dragon's belly. You'd better not meet me. Otherwise, your strong self-confidence will fall to rock bottom, never to rise again." Boom! Just as the two faced each other, their gazes locked in an intense clash in the air. The two true dragons tore through the thick dark clouds at the same time. Then, golden pillars of light descended. Xiao! The stone pillars returned to the ground and landed in Dragon Sealing City. Roar! 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 Only at this moment did the frozen stone dragons come to life. The 10-odd little dragons that had been suppressed for a long time soared into the sky and roared loudly, venting the frustrations in their hearts. The scene of the dragons soaring into the sky was very majestic. This was especially so when the 10-odd golden pillars of light landed at the same time. It was an eye-opener for everyone. After that, golden dragons soared and tore through the clouds at nearly every moment. However, Xiao Chen, who was on the roof, lost the patience to continue watching. While he watched the fight for the dragon pillars, he also casually looked around the city. Dragon Sealing City was the only intact ancient city in the world. There were still many unique buildings from the ancient era in the city, which was an eye-opener. After 7 or 8 minutes, 2 figures flew over. It was a receptionist who led Lu Suifeng over. Based on his dispirited expression, he should have failed the challenge. "I failed. There are too many geniuses. Only after coming here did I realize that I am nothing," Lu Suifeng sighed as he shook his head at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "Don't be discouraged. Just watch this competition carefully. If you put your heart into it, you should have no problem advancing to Martial Monarch." Lu Suifeng nodded with a serious expression. He said, "Definitely. With the great age before us, I do not wish to stop here." After another 7 or 8 minutes, Mu Chen and Zhang Lai also arrived. As expected, both of them failed. However, the two of them were very open-minded. They had originally intended to broaden their horizons and did not hold much hope. The 4 of them gathered together and did not seem bored. They began to casually chat about some things. Mu Chen glanced at Xiao Chen and said, "Before I came down, I took a look at Brother Murong's situation. He's very ambitious and wants to directly obtain the right to become a seated participant. Until now, there has been no result." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "With his strength, it is a little difficult for him to compete for the seated spot. However, it should not be difficult for him to qualify. Have you seen senior sister Yun? How is her situation?" "Hee, I'm here." Right after Xiao Chen spoke, melodious laughter rang out in everyone's ears. Yun Kursen wore a light-colored floral dress and walked over with a smile on her face. Based on the smile on Yun Kursen's face, it was very different from the others. Without even guessing, it was clear whether she qualified or not. "Did you pass?" Lu Suifeng and the others asked. Yun Kursen nodded gently and smiled, "I was lucky to qualify. 3 days later, I will be able to fight in the Wind Cloud Arena." Mu Chen and the others revealed envious expressions. However, they were all from their own sect, so there was no need to be jealous. They all cupped their hands and congratulated Yun Kursen. After chatting for a while, Lu Suifeng suddenly said, "Murong Chong lost." Everyone looked up and saw that the fight for the remaining 9 seated participants had reached its most intense stage. The one who defeated Murong Chong was the scion of the Qian clan, one of the 8 noble clans, Qian Wen. Of course, it was not a true defeat. The fight for the seated spot was not to the point where one side had to die. The Qian clan's trump cards and killing moves would not be revealed so early. They could only retreat in the face of difficulty. However, not long after, Murong Chong obtained the rights to another dragon pillar. It was as Xiaochen said, he easily qualified for the arena battles. Resonant dragon roars resounded endlessly. Many golden dragons soared into the sky, filling the sky with golden light. For thousands of years, Dragon Sealing City had been dark. Today, it was dazzling everyone's eyes. As time slowly went by, the first stage of the 5-nation youth competition's preliminaries came to an end. After some intense competition, the 400 elite spots were finally decided. 3 days later, the arena battles would begin. Then, the exciting show of the 5-nation youth competition would officially begin. When the thick, dark clouds above retracted, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion elders finally arrived at the courtyard under Jiang Qi's lead. Xiao Chen and the others on the roof jumped down as well. Jiang Qi swept his gaze across the somewhat wretched courtyard. He sighed softly and said, "It has been hard on you all. Staying in this broken-down places because our Heavenly Saber Pavilion has declined too much in the past few years." The courtyard was indeed very simple. Even if the group of 10-odd people split it evenly, each person would get a room. There was not even a private backyard. It would be very inconvenient to cultivate at night. Of course, this was the rule of Dragon Sealing City. It was not fair or unfair. If you were strong, you would naturally get a luxurious courtyard. The courtyards of the 8 noble clans and 10 great sects, the rich and powerful families of the 5-nation youth competition, were much more spacious and luxurious. Not only did everyone get a small courtyard, but there were also special cultivation rooms left behind from the ancient era for the participants to make their final preparations. Murong Chong said sullenly, "It will be fine after this 5-nation youth competition. The later generations of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion will not be like us again." Shen Manjun smiled and said, "Let's not talk about this first. There are many special cultivation places in Dragon Sealing City. Our sect will pay for your expenses there." Jiang Qi walked forward and gave each of the 3 people who had qualified to take the test a spatial ring. As for the others who had not, they all received a wooden box. Xiao Chen checked with his spiritual sense and was mildly astonished. There were quite a lot of medial-grade spirit stones in the spatial rings, a total of 400,000. With the 3 of them combined, there were more than 1 million medial-grade spirit stones. It looked like the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had put in a lot of money for this 5-nation youth competition. Jiang Qi's expression did not show any signs of heartache. The fact that 3 people qualified for the next round had already greatly exceeded his expectations. In the entire continent, only 400 people qualified. It was not easy for the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to get 3 spots. Even their old rival, the Misty Sword sect, only got 2 spots. The Night Spirit Palace was even worse. Only Mu Qingxue barely qualified. As for the other noble clans of the Great Qin nation, aside from the Duanmuking, none of them qualified. Jiang Qi smiled faintly and said, "Go and rest first. If you have time tomorrow, you can stroll around Dragon Sealing City. There are many interesting things in the city." High in the sky, thick clouds covered the entire Dragon Sealing City. As a result, night came very early. After 4 hours, the sky turned completely dark. Xiao Chen gently pushed open the door to his room and leaped up. Then, he flew towards the ring-shaped mountain range. He scanned the area with his spiritual sense and discovered many other cultivators with the same goal as him. The competition was about to start. Naturally, he had to organize the martial techniques he learned. He could not slack off. After finding a desolate mountain peak, Xiao Chen paused for a while in midair. Then, he quickly landed in a rather flat forest. The cold night wind blew, but Xiao Chen, who was wearing only a thin layer of clothing, did not feel too cold. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen calmed down completely. Then, he placed his right hand on his saber hilt and drew it. A surging saber intent immediately surged out and spread out in the forest. Countless whirlwinds blew, picking up large amounts of fallen leaves and making them hum. Xiao Chen's saber intent slowly rose. Soon, it reached the might of small perfection. Then, it continued to grow stronger. The 40% comprehended saber intent stretched the whirlwinds into a long straight line. The fallen leaves in the line spun rapidly like sharp blades, kicking up a cloud of dust. The leaves looked like they could not hold on any longer. They looked like they would explode at any moment. However, they did not explode in the end. This showed that Xiao Chen had perfect control over them. The 50% comprehended saber intent caused a strong wind to blow. Tiny cracks appeared on the fallen leaves. The 60% comprehended saber intent caused the leaves in the forest to explode. The ferocious saber intent turned into a saber wind and swept through the forest. Ka xie! Ka xie! The trees broke. When the saber wind was over, all the trees in the forest had been cut in half. If others saw this scene, they would be greatly astonished. Bai Qi's peak small perfection saber intent was already sufficient for him to stand out from the crowd. However, the saber intent that Xiao Chen displayed was 60% comprehended. He was just one step short of great perfection. However, Xiao Chen did not get too excited about the situation in the forest. He remained extremely calm. If he forcibly raised his saber intent, Xiao Chen would be able to raise it to 60% comprehended as well. That would be no weaker than Sima Lingxuan's. However, it would be very difficult for him to control it as he pleased. It looked like he was just one step short of being able to control it as he pleased, and his saber intent would reach great perfection. However, this step was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Xiao Chen said softly, "My saber intent can only be considered to have reached 40% comprehended. However, if I really meet Sima Lingxian, I can still go all out. There is no need to fear him." Sima Lingxian had heaven-defying self-confidence. Although he, Xiao Chen, was low-key, he did not show any signs of weakness. "No matter how overwhelming your aura is or how confident you are, I do not fear you. I will defeat you." Xiao Chen slowly moved through the forest. He executed the martial techniques that he knew, the Wukue saber technique, the lightning tribulation saber technique, and the strongest four-season saber technique, one by one. A strong aura spread through the forest. Explosions resounded without end. By the time Xiao Chen sheathed his saber, the flat mountaintop was riddled with holes. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.